Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode, the pilot episode of 2.5 Talent. My name's Neo Kai. I'm joined with the lovely Dat Paladin and Trav CS, of course, as it's our first ever episode. It's a show in which it's sort of a podcast, sort of a show, it's just where we get to talk about CS. It's what we know and love. And I thought, like, just to kickstart things, we can kind of talk about who we are and how we got into esports, how we got into CSGO, what made us fall in love with this game, and decide to do a podcast. Trav, do you want to kickstart us?
Yeah, sure. So it's a bit of it goes back quite a long way at this point. I mean, I started playing Counter-Strike in about, I think, early 2015. And then I sort of started playing more and more with my friends. Then eventually we were like, oh, hello, there's a Counter-Strike event in London by the name of ECS Season 1.
Okay.
And
What
that
year was
is
that?
the first, that would have been 2016. So
Long time ago now.
that was the first CS esports event. I think actually esports event full stop I ever went to. Absolutely got hooked from there basically instantly. I became a lover of the Shock Scream G2 as they ran riot over Luminosity and
Sure.
just destroyed everyone. It was a wonderful experience, and ever since then, love that side of the game. And then I think about honestly around 4 years after that was when I had a couple of friends in ESEA Advanced. I realized that I can just stream that. Open IP streaming is on ESEA Advanced. I recommend any up and coming caster to get yourself involved with some of those games because it's a great opportunity. And from there, I started casting my friends with a terrible headset mic. It was awful. And from there on in, sort of mid 2020, then early 2021, I started getting like bit pieces. I did a stand-in cast. I think actually one of my first casts for Relog, for example, was with Retro actually, Neo.
Okay, all right. My boy Retro.
For a Fun Spark.
Yeah.
For a Fun Spark game, which I stood in for. I think one of my biggest first ones was that CIS RMR, that terrible one, the famous Akuma
Epicenter,
RMR.
the Epicenter one.
Yeah. That was a weird one, but still, I did it, and it was great fun. And yeah, ever since then, I've been putting on the grind, realizing that it's something that I love and I can pursue. So
it's not bad. Paladin, hit me.
Pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have that much of a more streamlined thing. I was always watching the game for a long time. I started playing in like 2013, and I think my friend in like middle school was like, "Hey, you should get this thing called Steam." And I was like, "Oh, I've been playing pinball on my Windows XP thing, so maybe I should go and like branch out." And so I downloaded Steam and I downloaded CS, and I was awful at it. I was like hard stuck silver 1, like really really bad at the game. And eventually I was like, I hate this game. This game is so stupid. It's so difficult, and I hate it. And so I stopped touching it. And then I watched EMS Katowice 2014, and I watched VP, and I watched the interview with Taz, and he was basically like telling the crowd, like, you shouldn't like shit talk Fnatic and all of these players and all of that. And I was like, I just fell in love with the game after that. I fell in love with Virtus Pro, and I realized how big this game was and how international it all was, and how much that goes into this. And I started like grinding. I started watching the War Owl videos, the VOO videos.
Classic.
And I was just like all into it. And I got out of silver at one point, and I was like, okay, I feel really good about myself. And I just started watching a lot more. I just started like getting into the history. I didn't realize that there was so much more history about it, that this game has been around for so long. And I watched. I just kept watching, and I was thinking I was just gonna be a super fan, and that would just kind of be what CS meant to me. But we had a storm here in Texas where we got frozen into our houses and we couldn't leave.
Damn.
And I was just alone, and I think Katowice was around the corner. It was what, 2020. It was when it was still online, and and I was like, okay, well, what if I just write a preview and I upload it into Reddit and see what happens? And I did, and we lost I was able to have enough Wi-Fi to upload it, and then I didn't have enough to actually get it back, to like get back the results and feedback or whatever. And after I got Wi-Fi back, I saw it was like on the front page, and it wasn't like the highest, but it was like a middle of the pack, right? So
fair.
That was like really cool. I was like, holy shit, like people actually care about like what I have to say, and maybe there is something here. And I think there was a guy at ESL who reached out, and he was like, can you like do this for us, and but we'll pay you and stuff. And so like I started like doing the same thing, but I was previewing for like a lot of the online stuff. I just kept doing that. And then I was like, hey, like if people like the previews, like why don't I just convert it to video form? I have so many more ideas. And so I started doing the YouTube stuff. Paladins Alliance started coming up, and then Thorin reached out and he wanted me on a podcast with him, and then the rest is kind of history. It's like I started loving talking about it so much. Like for a longest time I was just kind of watching so much I couldn't actually get any of my thoughts out into the ether, and having that opportunity was like super duper awesome. And after that, it was like I'd much rather be on the desk than casting, just because I think I've just been loving putting out like a narrative, like focusing on the history of the game and shaping a narrative and talking about where did this player come from and why is he here and all of that. And it's been a really crazy last 2 years, and I think we're all in a very similar boat, and I'm glad that we have this podcast to kind of show where we started and
I'd agree.
show go forward.
Yeah.
These last couple of years, they've been nuts, haven't they?
Yeah, really crazy.
What are you gonna say, Trav?
Just to be clear, that in the 2.5 talent name, I am the half because I'm short. just so people, just in case people don't know, it's a personality trait at this point that I'm the short one. So
it's the explanation.
5'4", just to be clear. Which is,
king.
it's not awful, but it's shorter
king.
than most people.
I don't think anybody knows my actual story. Like even like my mates who I play like CS with every day, like my story of how I actually got like into CS. It's like not at all like the normal route. Like it wasn't through, seeing it on Twitch or like watching it. So basically I used to be like really into, I don't know if you remember like a group of YouTube guys called like Vanos. Do you remember them? Like Vanos Gaming? Yeah, big throwback, right? So I used to love Vanos. Like, like their Gmod videos and stuff like that. Used to love Vanos. And then I got really hooked on sort of like groups of gamers. So like obviously there was the Sidemen who are huge in England. Like growing up, I've been watching the Sidemen since kind of even before they were the Sidemen, essentially, throughout school. And I went to boarding school as well, right? So we had a lot of downtime. We were very bored and we couldn't play video games. So I couldn't play video games, so I'd watch them. I'd watch people play them and watch funny people. So started with like the Sidemen, then got into Vanos, and then got into like a group. I don't know, I can't remember what the exact group's called, but like KYR, Speedy, and Sidearms, and BOO. I don't know if you remember any of these names, but like they're
Sidearms, I remember.
Yeah. So these guys, they were like super like very famous and very funny. I think Speedy has over 10 mil sub. He's huge, and like that whole group. I used to watch them all the time, and they probably about 2015, 2016, started playing a lot of CS, and they would basically only play Nuke as well. Because there's a guy in their group of YouTubers called like G13, I think he was, and he was just like their hard carry. He was like a global elite before the rank reset, and he was like a god basically. And he used to just carry them on Nuke, and so I fell in love with watching them. Like it was so funny, but they were pretty good as well. And some of them, like Speedy, the main guy who I'd always watch, was like completely shit. So I like really resonated with him. But yeah, so because I couldn't play, because I was at boarding school, I used to just watch all the time. So I loved it. And about 2016, I started. I got a job because my mom was like, right, 16 years old now. You can't at summer holidays. You can't just sit here the whole summer holidays. Get a job. So I got a job. And I worked all summer and like all Christmas holiday, and I got enough money to buy a PC. And it's still the exact same PC I've got now. I bought it in summer 2016, and it's still the same PC. Never upgraded it, barely even cleaned it since, and it's still running tank. It's got like a 1080.
I was gonna say, I've seen the screenshots. We'll get into that at some point to flame you for that, because you deserve a flame, to be honest. But anyway, go ahead.
But the same PC, the beautiful rig, it's still going. Had it since 2016, and like I got it in the first game I got was CSGO, because I watched Sidearms and Speedy and these guys play. Like I play all the time, and I thought it was so funny. And then I was like, okay, cool, I'll get it. So I got it, and then I had some mates I went to school with who I was actually super close to them at school, because at school I was always like I was always the sporty guy. Like I played football and rugby and cricket for like the kind of the top teams of my school. So I was always a sporty guy, not really a computer guy. And then I completely changed basically. I got my PC, fell in love with CS, and my mates were like mainly like the PC guys, who I would never really speak to at school, because they weren't in the sports teams with me, or they weren't in my class, for example. So I got spoken to them. They're like some of my closest mates now because we just play CS all the time. And we used to basically just solo queue nuke as well because I kind of forced them to from watching to like Speedy and Sidearms and those guys. But yeah, and then so played from like 2016. That's when I started, and then 2018 the Face It London Major was on, and I never watched a competitive game of CS between like 2016 and 2018. Never even like thought about it. I never cared and just never watched. And then the Face It Major was on, and one of my mates who was part of my group, he went and he met Tarek, and I'd seen YouTube videos of Tarek in streams, and I really thought like he was like the guy I love. I thought he's so funny, the content king, you know how it is. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll watch some of the London Major and see if I can see him in the crowd. That's the reason why I started watching. I was like, I can see my mates in the crowd. He told me where he was sitting. I don't actually care about the game, like watching it competitively, but I'll see if I can find my mates. And then I started watching it, and I just loved it. Like every second, I'd watch every game. And it was just brilliant, basically. And then from then on, I just watched every single game. And then I went to university, brought my PC with me. Started playing at uni, like for my university, and then I started playing like somewhat competitively, like university, like UKCS, which is pretty poor in the grand scheme of things. But through that, I met one of my like best mates called C60, who in 2020 then, when COVID was like obviously ripe and happening, I was on what at university is called a placement year. Essentially, you go and do a year out in industry. So for me, I was an accountant. That was my original plan as a career, just to become like an accountant or an investment banker. I was always like a finance guy. So I was an accountant at like one of the big 4 accountancy firms in London. During COVID, I was working from home all the time. So I used to like log on, like roll out of bed, log on at 9 a.m. and then close my laptop at 6 p.m. and then be like, okay, cool. There's nothing to do. Like nothing was open. Gyms weren't open. Shops weren't open. I couldn't do anything. And you weren't even allowed to like see your mates at this point. This was when like you couldn't even like you had like
proper
one
lockdown.
Yeah, like you're allowed one bit of exercise a day. Like that was like the rule. Like that's when it was like when I got started. This was like September 2020. He was doing an ESEA season. I was just sitting in my room and he was like, "Oh mate, like why don't you open up your stream and like just like stream my game?" So me and one of my mates who was one of the guys who went to the London Major, who was the reason why I started watching competitively, we would just sit in the call. We open it up and we're not commentating at all. We're like just chatting shit. Like we're actually roasting like my mate. Like if he would die, we would just laugh at him basically. Like in GoTV on my stream. And then like the next week I was like, oh, do you know what? Like I might try like a little bit more serious. So we tried it a little bit serious, but we still just like me and him when we're together, we just can't be serious. We'd always just like take the piss. And then the third week he wasn't there, so I brought in another one of my mates called Alex, and we just went serious. We're like, okay, let's just try and go serious. I'll do more of the play-by-play, you do more of the color. And a talent manager saw it, who ended up being one of the guys who worked for Relog, who I'm assuming at some point we'll talk about him because we've all had experiences with Kieran. But he saw my stuff basically, and he brought me on. So I was working for Vortex then, and I was still an accountant, so I kind of just did I think I was getting paid like $10 a best of 3 maybe, something like that, like insane. But I didn't care because I was a full-time accountant. I was just doing it as a hobby, and I was like locked in my room anyway, so I couldn't really do anything else. And then it's just been like the most insane upward spiral, and now it even got to the point where I've just finished university and I got a job offer from the same accountancy firm that I was working at, like to work full-time and get all the qualifications as a chartered accountant and whatever. And I rejected it. And I'm now a full-time commentator. So it's like the most like
It's
weird life story. But yeah,
life comes at you fast, doesn't it? I mean,
does.
unironically, COVID, like it kickstarted my career.
Yeah,
me too.
Because there was so much online CS. All three of us, I've got. Unfortunately, as you know, COVID is obviously very much a bad thing. But in terms of our lives, because of what it did to the world and how it messed up the world, it kind of gave us opportunities, and
it's gave us all a career, hasn't it? Yeah,
exactly. And starting, and as you say, Neo, like you booting up the stream and everything, like people would come in the chat and recognize and notice you, and you get nice comments saying, "Oh, I like your commentary. I hope you do more," and stuff like that. And you start building up more people starting to like you, and then you get more noticed, and then just progressively making your way up the steps. And it's crazy how things can just go click.
To be fair,
it happens in like 3 months.
Yeah,
it's not even like it's a longer period of time. It happens really fast, and when it does, it kind of just hits you like a ton of bricks.
I have a story about both of you though in terms of commentating. So when I was starting, obviously like I did like these ESEA Open games and like maybe the odd like random like tier 12 game in some tournament. But But I used to watch quite a lot of your streams, Trav, because you used to just do every ESEA advanced game like ever, basically.
I
So-
did my friends,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
casted my friends a lot, yeah.
So I used to watch a lot of yours, and I'd see you all the time because I watched a lot of CS. So you'd be my recommended, and you came up so consistently that like I think I ended up following you, and then I would like I'd watch. I don't think I'd ever really chat. I just kind of lurk, and obviously you had no idea who I was
you
at this
lurked.
point.
You definitely lurked.
But I used to just watch them because I was just interested. And by this point, I was like hooked on CS. Like any competitive CS, I'd be like watching like Go TVs or like intermediate games. Like I was hooked. Like it was like I would watch anything. And you used to like cast all the time, so I'd always see your stuff. So like I think we worked together for the first time on IM4.
Did.
And I only got on that gig on pure accident, basically, because Cody Casts recommended me, and he got ill, and I got like a 3-hour warning, basically. It was like, can you work with Trav at like today at 6? And I was like, yeah, I know who Trav is, like 100%. I watch his streams. I was like, yeah, damn right. Like I'll happily work with Trav. And then we did the what they call like the best of 6, like 6 rounds things. You remember? It was like
Those
what
little
called?
tiebreakers.
Yeah, tiebreakers. Yeah. So we did IM4 tiebreakers.
The one that I remember off the top of my head is Heroic v Sinners. That was a really fun one.
I remember Movistar going 3 for 3 on Nuke. That was my big thing. They were unstoppable on Nuke.
Yeah.
But
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was like my first thing at you.
The full map was Heroic versus Sinners. I remember because I remember Refresh got a nice clip with the FAMAS, and I think and also the Sinners won that, so it was like a pretty cool upset.
It was upset, yeah.
As well, upset, yeah, because all those beer ones are easy to upset.
Yeah.
And yeah, other bits and pieces, as you say, IM4 was probably. I think it definitely was our first time. Pretty crazy that it got to that stage. And then again, you saying your story of unfortunately Cody being unwell and you hopping in. That's exactly how I got very lucky to do some of the sort of finishing matches. I think I did Astralis versus Vitality with Dweg.
What insane game!
I did the famous like Copenhagen Flames versus Fiend game, which whoever won that made the major.
Okay,
which was like a huge deal for both teams.
That was a good game.
And yeah, the only reason I got to do those because I think was Jay was unwell. So yeah, again, you got to take these opportunities if they come to you, haven't you?
Yeah, and then with you, Paladin, as well. I actually used to get sent your videos by my mate who was he's like a fan of yours, basically, because he's like similar to you in terms of he loves the detail, basically. That's like his big thing. Yeah. So I used to get sent your videos, and then when I was working with you on, obviously we worked together on ESL conference. That was the first time we'd met. I followed you, and then you hit like 1,000 subscribers, and I was like, "Hey, like, congrats, man!" And then like I remember you like, "Thanks," but like you didn't follow me back, and I was like, "Damn, man!" Like,
I didn't know who you were. And I was like, "Oh, I've seen this guy around. I've seen this guy around. Oh my god!"
See
and
how
then after they announced the conference, I was like, "Shit, man! Oh my god! I gotta follow this guy. Why am I not following him?"
I was like, damn, I got egoed by this. Damn. Like, see how it is. And then, but no, I used to watch your content like quite a bit. So I was like, and obviously, like, I think as well, like, I don't know if you'd agree, but I think when we got to conference, because we were like basically the only people there of like similar age. Like we were like, you're like 1 year older than me. No, you're 1 year younger than me. I'm 1 year older than you.
I think I'm younger.
Yeah, you're 21. I'm 22.
How old? I'm 25, so I'm the old boy here.
Okay, yeah. And then, you're 21, right? From what I remember. Yeah. So I'm like by half a year older than you. So like we were kind of like similar age, and then like a lot of the other people they were slightly older than us, or in the other sense like more experienced than us. I think is the other way. So I think we clicked like so quickly. I would say it was very like. Kind of like natural from the get-go, like very easy. And I remember like I think like what solidified it is when we had that like half day off and we like decided to just go explore. Like me and you just went and explored Stockholm. So that was that was good fun. And that was like kind of like weird, like two different stories. But like I already knew you prior to ever meeting you, and then obviously got to work with both of you on big gigs as well.
I haven't met you yet. I haven't met you yet.
Well, yeah, virtually, mate. It was one of those.
I'll meet you one day.
Exactly. But it was one of those things that was like kind of like how these like tied together. Basically, it was like essentially with you, Trav. That was my first big gig, basically. My first like huge one. I'd done a lot of the like the Snow Sweet Snow and stuff like that, which granted like so big for like propel in my career, but that was like first ESL proper gig. Like So it was big gig, and then obviously with you, Paladin, that's my first in person. So it was like two
I mean,
massive
those get
milestones.
different, right? Like doing ESL stuff, it's just like you can feel the gravitas of it
Exactly.
completely change. I mean, when I did GH November, like it was like another one of those online things, and but it's like, oh, you gotta like talk about Mouse, and I know Mouse wasn't very good at that time, but it was like,
Big org
holy
though,
crap.
right? Yeah.
And it's like I could talk about Rops, like I think that was around
Yeah.
the time Rops was out of the door and he was
Mhm.
gonna go to phase, but it was like, oh my god, I gotta talk about Rops and see, like they came in last place and this is a big thing,
Mhm.
and but like having opportunities like that when you get to talk about these bigger teams, it just
It's
changes how you
huge. Yeah.
perceive like your job and like whether it's part time or if it's full time, like
Mhm.
it really starts
Yeah.
to settle in, you know.
Even the online aspect of it for me, like when like I did IEM Fall, suddenly I'm thrust into casting Zaiwu versus
Right.
Astralis,
It's
Yeah.
insane, isn't it?
and then I did G2 versus Movistar Riders as well, which hilariously Movistar Riders won.
Yeah.
But like still that was G2 with Nico and everyone, so it was like, oh my god,
It's
like
insane, isn't it?
suddenly I'm here, like how did I get here, like how has this happened? But
Even when you're sitting at home,
yeah.
you still feel like how important it is. I remember like sometimes like when I had a commentator as well, like I like to be like the more like conversational. Like obviously you do a bit of hype, but as I'm like primarily a color caster, I do kind of a more like the relaxed stuff. But in that one, I'm like sitting forward in my chair. I'm like laser focused. Like my phone's like another room. I don't care. Like I'm lasered in basically. Like so, you really do feel like the kind of gravitas. And I guess that sort of quite nicely segues into like the first in person. So obviously like Paladin, we were together, and then Trav, you were the week after us for our first one. I guess like Paladin, you can go first on this. Like first in person. Oh no, yours actually wasn't. You had one in person before us.
My first one was ESL Challenger February.
Mhm.
It was supposed to happen in Anaheim, but I guess they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we built our studio out, so we're gonna
Right.
have it in Stockholm," and so they shipped me out there, and that was just such a weird experience. Like, first of all, I've never been like flown out by a company to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And for that to like be about video games and like something that I've been following for a really long time,
Mhm.
that just blew my mind. Like the whole plane ride there, it's like practically a day's worth of travel, but I'm like
Yeah.
giddy the entire time. I can't sleep, can't do anything. Just thinking about CS and these 8 teams that are there.
Mhm.
And then I get there and the roster for it was like Bleh, who like I've been watching this guy for like so
It's like a
long.
god, right? Yeah.
Honestly, one of the inspirations of me like doing it,
Mhm.
because like just having an Indian in the scene was just like, oh shit, like
Mhm.
he can do it too. Like I can do it too, you know.
Mhm.
So that was really cool. And then Devil Walk was also on that roster, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy's a major winner. He's come out of the woodwork to do this ESL Challenger.
Mhm.
Why is he here? I don't know. This is still crazy. And then I even Alan and Dinko, like these guys have also done a lot of big tournaments, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just that whole thing of like you're sharing the stage with all of these people. By the way,
Mhm.
no pressure. And that was like a huge like thing. And then you like go in and you fly in and we go to the studio one of these days for the rehearsal. And we step into the studio and we're the first people to see it. It was like that brand new like thing that they had set up just for ESL Challenger. And I've never felt more like starstruck like ever. Like it was just like all these like cool, like they have the telestrator and they've got like these
Uh-huh.
green lights and like it feels so professional.
Yeah.
And I was taking pictures and sending it to all my friends, and they're all just like, "Oh my god, where the hell are you? Like, what are you doing?" And all this. Like, this is happening during school,
Mhm.
and so like this is just like insane. And on the way to the rehearsal, I have to sit next to Devil Walk, and I was trying to like figure out how I was gonna talk to this guy, but this guy just he was just talking to me. He was like, "What do you think about Movistar Riders 9Z?" Blah blah, and he was just talking on and on and on. And like the guy was just so nice, and
Mm.
I think the biggest thing about the event was like I never felt out of my depth in the
Yeah.
sense that like everybody was so nice, no matter how experienced they all were. They were all
Yeah.
like, "Okay, we get that it's your first event. Like, we're here to help you and make sure that you feel comfortable."
Mhm.
And I never felt like that. Like in the other stuff that I've done, I never felt like I've been an outcast by any means. Like it feels
For
like
sure.
there is a general amount of camaraderie to some point. And I think that's the big takeaway from my first gig is like there's legs to this. Like there's
Mhm.
legs to like enjoying the company of others. And I think sometimes it's like that's what I like more about the actual event. Like sometimes the games don't go as you plan,
Yeah.
and the playoff bracket looks a little bit more lopsided. But what makes it fun is is the people that you're doing with, and you can have
100%.
a little bit of banter back and forth. And I know Neo, you and I had a lot of fun at conference for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, like, I even remember, like, I was watching it back recently. I had some of the footage still on my, I have it still on my PC, basically, and it's all on Google Drive and stuff. Cause I'd, like, send it to the editor to do it for me. And I was, like, going through the vlog, and there's like a few, like, funny bits that, like, just, like, really memorable of, like, it's like, I was showing my mum the other day, like, there's, like, this really nice building in Stockholm Park, which was, like, the museum that we were at. And there's a bit where, like, you're going to the bin, but you're like just running like an idiot, and it was like, it looked like you were just like running towards this police lady, and I remember just like cracking up and being like, that is such like a kind of a core memory. Or like, or another one where like you had my Wikipedia page open and I came over your shoulder and like, look at this guy, look at this guy. It's just like dumb funny things like that, basically, that are like just like really good, basically. Yeah. And that's also the kind of thing where I want, hopefully we get the chance to do one as well together, Trav, because you were the week after us, basically, and you were essentially with primarily NA, because I think me and Paladin are the majority of our group was EU, basically, aside from you and Mike. Yeah, and then kind of the other way for you, Trav, it was like you and Scriv are like kind of one of the few EU guys there, and then the rest were primarily NA.
Yeah, so it was Mike, of course, hosting. We had Alan as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we had Maui, of course, which was probably the most well-known.
Badly. He's he's my inspiration, genuinely.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I mean, obviously, like, maybe he comes across a bit scary on the desk. One of my friends said, "Oh, he seems a bit scary. He seems very serious," but no, he's honestly a lovely guy. Of course, Mimi was there as well, and she's like S tier talent in Valorant, to be honest.
I haven't done a bit of Valorant. Like, she's the one that everyone, like, you can kind of see. You know, like when a lot of people talk about like talent who you just know is just going to be here forever, kind of thing. Like, people are kind of looking at her as like sort of the next Pansy, basically, like one of like the goats, essentially.
She's really good, really good commentator, and obviously in Valorant she's really insane at doing analyst work on the desk as well. I mean, yeah, she's like quite a lot younger, and you can tell because she's like, it's funny. We've all got our different styles, right, when we cast and stuff. But because she's younger, and obviously like,
how old is she?
I think she's I don't even think she's 20 yet. Don't even know.
Really?
Actually.
I didn't realize she was that young. Oh my god. Okay.
Double check her Wikipedia page.
That's insane how far she's gone, by the way, and she's like not even 20. Like, props there, but deserved as well.
Obviously, absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, like, Valorant is a very, games come at abilities come at you thick and fast. I'm just gonna make this clear. Side note: I never plan to cast Valorant at any point. I'm gonna be a Counter-Strike guy, but yeah, obviously, like, you can tell she's like, got a bit like a bit of not nerves, but she's the younger one, and she's all very jumpy in the seat, and some of us just sit there very calmly, and some people stand up and move around a lot. It's it's pretty interesting, different styles. And Maui was, as I said, very nice. And JRT as well. I will say JRT, who casted with Mimi, he's the most lovely guy I think you'll ever meet. Okay. He's the sweetest, kindest, sort of mellow guy. Like, you could say anything to him and he'd look at you with a smile, so yeah, really lovely guy. And everyone who was there, as Paladin so rightly said as well, accepted me as the first studio event guy, a bit of a newbie, accepted me perfectly. They always like, yeah, okay, don't worry about it, I think you're doing a really good job. And everyone was incredibly accommodating, production, everyone. It was just, I really enjoyed it. And just the experience of, as Paladin said, walking into that studio, seeing the desk, seeing your casting desk, seeing the cameras, and like, oh my god, I'm gonna be on the camera. That's I'm used to being on camera, but this is the camera, and it was pretty sick, and I absolutely loved it. And it was also not easy in the case of commentary is quite difficult, but it was very easy to do your job. Just put your headset on. You'd have production in your ear. If you needed to talk to something, you had 2 buttons, mute and talk to production, and you could just have at it and have a great time. I loved it.
For me as well, like so my first one was with Paladin for Stockholm. That was a Conference 16. My one was a little bit different. I'd never done desk work before that, and I'd never, even in your side, Paladin, you'd done YouTube videos where you break down, so you could show your analytical side. But for me, I'd never, right? So mine was like a little bit different. It was I remember this so specifically. I was just kind of, all I did was casting. I'm primarily a color caster. I work a lot with Retro, and he does the play-by-play. I do all the color stuff, and it's just kind of like my preference essentially. I remember I was chilling in my room with, I think I was watching a movie or something, and I was just sitting with my girlfriend, and I got a message from Joe Miller. I was like, who's this? And I open it up, and I see his profile, and he follows me, and I see his profile, and I was like, talent manager ESL. I'm like, no way, no way. And I freak out basically, and then nothing happens. He just followed me. That's it. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then an hour later, basically, he's like, mate, do you ever want to do any analyst work? And I was like, yeah, I will do anything. I don't care. I'll be water boy if you bring me out. I do not care. He was like, all right, cool, I'll consider you. That was it. That was the entire conversation. I was like, oh, thank you so much for considering me, whatever. Of course, you've got to kind of be, thankful to the Lord. And I was just like, oh yeah, thanks for considering me. And then he DM'd me. He was like, I want to bring you out for conference. I want you to be on the desk. And I was like, oh, I freaked out. I remember I was in my room, freaked out. This is like 2 and 3 hours later, basically. I was meant to, I think it's 1 a.m. basically. And I was kind of just getting ready for bed. I was brushing my teeth basically. I freaked out. And I knocked my own phone out of my hand, cracked it, just freaking out, basically screaming in my house. Woke my housemate up, and he was like, you're right. What's going on? I was like, oh, I'm going to fucking Sweden. I was losing it basically. And he was like, yeah, it was just such a big deal. Because it isn't my first in-person CS thing, because before that I'd done one in person for Fortnite, which is very random. I'd never ever done Fortnite. I'd never done it since. It was a random thing. I'd been to Qatar for that FIFA gig, and that was kind of through my agent. Yes. But I was freaking out, and I was like, that mate, I lost it essentially. And it was and I actually remember speaking to Maui just beforehand and just being like, do you have any advice? Because for me, Maui had always been someone that I looked up to, because on the first season of We Play Academy League, just before it happened actually, so I casted Torzi when he was in Budapest 5 in Blast Rising. I remember this so vividly, and on Overpass you got a 1 versus 5, and it was the most insane thing. And you can just tell from one clip that someone is just going to be phenomenal. I was like, all right, this guy is the dog's bollocks, he's insane. So I DM him on Twitter. He has 100 followers or 200 followers on Twitter, playing for Budapest 5, no one really watching them. I DM was like, mate, can I interview you? I'd love to interview you. And he was like, yeah, sure, happily. And then he leaves Budapest 5, and he's like, can we wait a couple of weeks? And then the Malice NXT announcement comes out. So I'm interviewing the day of the announcement, the day after the announcement basically. And I remember Maui used it on a We Play, and he was like, oh, I just want to we were talking about, I did JDC as well. I did both of them, 2 separate interviews, both around the same time. And he used those interviews on the thing, and he was and he gave me a shout out. I remember getting DMs, loads of DMs from mates, other casters, be like, yo, yeah, Maui's shouting you on. I was freaking out at that as well. So Maui's always been someone for me. And then when I did We Play this season, I put it on Instagram, and he DM'd me. He was like, damn, about damn time. You've come in full circle. You've gone from interviewing the players to now being on it. Congrats. And I was like, that's the guy I want to meet. He just seems the loveliest dude.
Yeah, ever. He is. I can vouch for that for sure. But yeah, I agree with what you say as well about the sort of. I'm quite. Especially on my own, I'm a very mellow, chill guy, right? Maybe if I'm playing games, I'm a bit more animated. Yeah. But if I'm just chilling, I even if I get good news, I'll just be I'll be relatively calm. Mm-hmm. And then I obviously got the email, as you say, saying, listen, we'd love to have you in Stockholm. I'd only in my whole life, I'd only been abroad twice before. Mm-hmm. Cologne 2019, and to a friend's wedding also in Germany.
Sure.
And this is my third trip abroad, and I was like, oh my goodness, okay. As Paladin said as well, I'm getting flown out for something. Yeah, oh my goodness, insane. Since when? And it's that was really the excitement level that really raised. Unfortunately, flights in the UK in that period were absolutely terrible. Yeah. So I got boned by a cancelled flight, but God bless Joe Miller, got me organised on a secondary a little bit later in the day. I think Mimi and Scriv actually had awful travel problems. They got there very late as well. So yeah, a bit lucky for us all to get there in the end, but I did. And as you so say, the travel aspect of it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, the only
There's something
thing for you,
about, like-
Paladin, like that 20-hour flight or whatever you have,
Yeah.
I gotta respect you for that, because you're like you essentially, if you're thinking your time zone, you're working reverse, which is just like I give more props to you than like anyone else, or like all the NA guys, because you're basically working nocturnally essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get used to it. I went to India a lot, and I'd have to deal with shit like a ton, and it would happen like every summer. So it's like I would understand like there would have to be some kind of like regiment that I have to go to kind of get settled in.
Yeah.
And it eventually works itself out, and I'm glad conference was longer this time because they had this
Gave you
weird
time.
issue in Sweden with the sun, right? Where it's like the sun would be up at like 3 a.m.
So it never went down. If for
Yeah,
people
like,
like
never
at
went
home,
down.
like in Scandinavia, for like peak summer, the sun never goes down. So it's like it's always light. There's never darkness, and that's what we had basically. It was like
Yeah,
I remember
and so-
I got woke up 3 a.m. first day. Like the sun was in the middle of the sky, and I woke up to the sunlight going down onto my bed. And like I freaked out. I thought I overslept because we had like a really early call time. Like it was like we had to be in an Uber at 9 a.m. or something. So I shit myself. Like run to the bathroom. I'm like having a piss. Like brush my teeth, getting ready. I'm like freaking out. Put my clothes on, getting the iron on. And because the sun's in the sky, I'm like, oh, I've fucked it. Like my alarm's not gone off. Whatever. Check it, it's like 2:45. I'm like,
I remember I was out with like I think it was post event. Yeah, we were all having a little chill in like a bar and something, and it got to like 2 a.m. I went outside and it was like, you know, the sky is still like sort of lit at the bottom. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think the other guy who did the event, of course, Raul, I believe his name is, right?
Oh yeah, it's Brazilian. Yeah.
And obviously he came from Brazil to do it. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, like, but bless him, I think he had. Yeah, that was long, and I think bless him, I think he had a couple of naps in the green room as well, because like
don't blame him. Yeah.
It was honestly rough for him, and he spoke to me about it, about, you know, how excited he is to do his first. I think it was his first English event. He told me.
Yeah, because he worked with Gauls. That's how I knew him. He was one of Gauls' crew. I don't know if he still is, but I know he did Brazilian stuff with Gauls. But that's the most I knew about him kind of before that.
Yeah, coming from Brazil, it'd be difficult. And obviously, as you say, the guys coming from NA, it's always very difficult. But we made it, and it gives it a great opportunity for those people to explore the world a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so
exactly that. Exactly. I think we could go into, after, you know, introducing who we are for the last like 40 minutes, we can actually go into some of the stuff we want to talk about. I think we'll start with my little segment, which is for this week is going to be just lowlights. I'm going to lean into a bit of a low light, a bit of a talking point. I'll get up on everyone's screens now, and it's this game right here. So Astralis losing to Aurora. I think that was one of the biggest shocks, upsets of the week. I don't know if any of you managed to catch it. I know this Tiddler guy was casting it, and we were on a tech break, I think, when I was live, and I tuned in. And I saw them, I think they went down like 5 or 6 rounds to start things off, and it really wasn't looking good. And I was like, oh, it's fine, I'll get back into it. But yeah, a pretty bad loss. I mean, granted, for the Aurora guys, well, people might not know the team. They don't even have a rank on HLTV yet, but some of the names in there are actually decent. Like Lackey played with Entropic, Kyron's been around for quite a while, and some of the others
Fair
like
Academy,
Sugar, Railway. They've played with like, it's like AVE, like basically CIS like tier 3-ish teams, but I think it's probably safe to say it's a bit of an upset, a bit of a low light.
I mean, I don't think Astralis has ever been in those situations where they have to play in open qualifiers for a full day. It's like it makes a different environment completely. And you could see this game. I think it was like one of those like last games of the day, right? Like
right at the end. I think it was the last best of one of the day.
Yeah. So at that point in time, you could tell all of the players on the server were just so tired. And like, look, one thing that CIS people can do is play a shitload of CS. Like they will play some high level CS for as long as they need to. And they looked so online, and it looked like everything Astralis was doing was like, they were just like, oh, we just need to get this game done with. Like we should win this game and we should be done with it. At least that's what I got from like the way they were playing in the server and the calls that were being made. It's a bummer that this had to happen, but I mean, at the end of the day, I thought Aurora was the better team.
Yeah, no, agreed.
It's a low light for sure. They're number 1 seed too.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were. So I didn't get a chance to watch it because I was doing another game on my personal channel, but obviously I was keeping up to date with it, and everyone in chat was saying, "Oh my God, Astralis are losing! Astralis are losing!" But yeah, as Paladin so rightly points out, I think I actually looked it up the last time some of these Astralis players had to play an open qualifier. I think Glaive is something like 2016 ECS season 2.
Wow. Okay.
When he was on heroic, I think, with like Modi and everyone. And I'm pretty sure Zipex has never played an open qualifier, at least in the last 7-8 years.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, it's remarkable. Obviously, they find themselves in this scenario, being the number 4 team in the world after having that Cologne run. But that's how this major system works. If you fail at the previous one, so. Yeah, and everyone was saying, "Oh, Farley's bottom fragging against tier 2. This is like, that's so
That's
awful."
the big talking point, though, isn't it? Farley,
but at the end of the day, it's a BO1 online against, as Paladin so rightly said, these players who are sick. Lackey, as you say, Exentropic, Railway's been on those teams for ages. Chiron has been a huge talent, of course. I think he played for Spirit Academy.
Yes, he did. He did Spirit Academy. Yeah, and Delusion was on VP Prodigy. They were both in the We Play league together, like one of the earlier seasons. Because I remember watching those two in the earlier seasons. I don't remember Delusion too much, but I remember Chiron being like specifically very good.
He actually played a game on the main team, and
did he? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. But he was absolutely. That was the period where they were about to drop SDY, and
right.
They had like that huge scandal situation where they just dropped their whole team.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But Kyron's been around the block for a little while, so it's not like they're nobodies, but
he was in another team. I can't remember who. Another mix that was just very good. But yeah, carry on, Trav.
I was just going to say that one other small thing as well to sort of. I know coaches obviously not allowed in the RMR Valve events, but they are coached by StarX. So outside the server, when they're not on, they've got the most experienced head in maybe all of CIS Counter-Strike to help them along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say they were very prepared coming into this. I think I remember people talking about the pickup overpass coming in, right? They were like some of the bans that came through. They were like, overpass against Astralis, like that's very risky kind of thing. But they knew exactly what they were doing. Like I think they had that veto down to a T, and they kind of played Astralis like very well. I think Astralis really slept them a little bit. I think as you mentioned, Paladin, it was like end of the day, last best of one. I think how it worked is they finished that best of one, and the next day they had.
I think it's one more best of one.
One more and then best of threes. Yeah. And actually, credit to Aurora, they actually qualified, right? If I'm right in saying they beat
Blue Jays.
Blue Jays. That's it. I was gonna say they're teammate like Casanito and that. I remember watching the last map of that. But yeah, I mean, credit to the thing is, I think what this shows, like, best of ones is a brutal format, right? I mean, I think no one disagrees, but when it's best of one single elim, like, I know it's a necessity. Don't get me wrong. There's no way we're having a lower bracket with 514 teams in the thing. There's no way there's a lower bracket happening. But yeah, best of one single elim, it can be brutal and it's so punishing. There's no room for error, no slip ups. Of course, for the most part, all of the big names made it through. I think. The only one that people would have expected maybe to really make it through would have been that of Fnatic. Yeah, Fnatic's probably the big one. I think they're upset with them. I spoke with Mezzi and he was pretty confident they were going to get through. But I think when I did speak to him, he was saying about basically like he's like we know there's multiple qualifiers. Is essentially what they're saying. So and because it's a new roster, they're just working together. I'm sure they'll probably make it through in one of the other attempts. But for me that was my low light. I just think. It's such an upset. It's such a big story. I think a lot of eyes are on Farlig, and I don't envy the pressure as well that he's probably feeling because there's the big stories or rumors more to say of like Device's contract with NiP is getting to a close, and everybody knows he wants to go back to Astralis. Like he's just not playing until he can go back to Astralis, which then means Farlig either has to be
worst kept secret.
Yeah, exactly, literally, the worst kept secret. Everybody knows it. He wants to go back to Astralis, and he probably will whenever his contract's up. And you look towards kind of Farlig. I mean, that's just some horrible pressure for him, knowing that he's either basically just cannon fodder until Device comes back, or he has to play. Essentially as one of the best AWPers of all time to be able to keep a spot. I mean, like he can't win, I feel, and I think that's really knocked his confidence. Like I think whack Farlig and some of any of the other teams dotted around. You look at some of the big teams that pick up Danish guys like Copenhagen Flames or Sprout or any of those sort of not tier 2 but like tier 1.5 teams. I reckon Farlig would be like unbelievably good. I think mechanically and fundamentally he's a fantastic player, but I think mentally he's not there. I just think the pressures maybe got to him a little bit, and kind of rightfully so, right? I mean, you just can't really replace Device and they've kind of had that eternal gap since Device has gone, basically.
It's really hard. I mean, I don't envy him. It feels like a knock situation on NIP with the same
for sure.
player. I I don't know. I think that Astralis, to me, I think they needed to have made a roster move just before this season.
I agree.
Instead of kind of pulling Farley along for this.
I agree.
And I hope that I hope he gets his rightful like glory, because I don't think, again, this is very similar to the Lucky situation where it's two super young players that have shown a bit of promise and are kind of just thrust into the highest level of competition and expected to just win tournaments. Like, you can't do that if you haven't been molded. Like, these guys are jumping from like tier 2 to like tier 1, but usually there's a little bit of a gap in between, right? Like there is like a 1.5 area where they qualify for a tier 1 tournament and they do a lot of great things. I think Farley is a little bit of an exception. Like, he did stuff with FPX and Godsend. But Lucky never had that opportunity. And I hope the stock doesn't tank for these players, because there is potential. There's a reason why they got picked up, but it's just they're not Astralis caliber. Like, Astralis is expected to win tournaments. They're not expected to be top 10. It's supposed to be top 1, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think with that as well, we can follow into just generally RMR talk. I mean, I know Trav, you're basically you're the resident expert. I mean, you what 8 hours a day kind of RMR streaming.
So what I will say quickly is just one thing I want to mention about that that Astralis part is that Paladin mentioned about the roster change. Their performance at Cologne kind of stopped them from doing that. I feel like.
Exactly.
They played well, and that should, and then sort of like, okay, we played well here, maybe we shouldn't. But I'll just finish off by saying Zipex is time's up.
Yeah, I've been saying that's my opinion. I have to agree. I mean, he's a great player, and he will always be seen as a legend. But I just feel like, buddy, maybe it's time to just take a step away. Let's have a breather.
Anyway.
Let's have a breather. Yeah. You know,
we'll have that conversation. I'm sure another time.
Exactly. We'll take a look generally at the RMR stuff. Of course, these are I've got the teams up who made it through. Sprout, Falcons, Mouse, Aurora, and OG are kind of from the first qualifier. Of course, there's 4 qualifiers for Europe, and this is just EU as well. There was qualifiers for NA. Central Asia, rest of Asia, and Middle East. But Trav, obviously you did most of the exactly. So you did most of the EU stuff, Trav. What did you see? Any standouts?
Yeah. So first day, it was obviously a nightmarish situation of the Go TVs just being utterly broken. Thankfully, the games could still be completed, but all the Go TVs were unwatchable. And we've got a funny clip actually.
Got a little clip. Have a little look at this one here. So I'll get this up, make sure it works for all of you. There we go. So this is from Trav's stream, in fact. So I'll just let this one play out.
Actually, Astralis.
Good little music added as well, I gotta say.
Yeah, the classic.
You see you just laughing.
Yeah, that was. Everyone was like, "Listen, they're running on the spot. You should add some funny music." Oh, Benny Hill works perfectly here. I have to give it a go. And then Koi, Mr. X Mouse analyst Koi,
done a good job there. Yeah.
And that was a rough one, but we got through that after an 8-hour stream of watching a quarter of a Sprout game and a quarter of an Eyeballers game. But it's fine.
Credit for staying alive, by the way. Like, just still believing that it was going to come back for 8 hours.
It's fine. God bless, I had people in chat to talk to. So
you got to like 6.5 hours, and you're like, nah, it's coming back, boys. Don't you worry. We've been here a while. Surely it's got to be fixed by now.
Finally, on day 2, we got saved with some actual games, and I did Copenhagen Flames versus Falcons, I believe.
Good game.
Which Falcons won.
Falcons have been unreal as well, by the way.
And then Falcons versus Fnatic, which is a really, really close game in the end, actually. Yeah. Fnatic came back all the way, I think, was it to 15-14, and then finally Falcons got it over the line at the final second.
Yeah, I was watching your stream, actually, because I was on Tech Pros, so I was watching your stream. It was good times.
Lovely. Good stuff. Yeah, Fasher had a couple of really nice plays as well. I think he got an ace up with the A1S on short B, which was really nice. I posted that to Twitter earlier. And Falcons just generally really impressive, and I think Misuta is at this level is a whole different force to be reckoned with.
He isn't scared, right? Like, he looks like he wants to take these fights, and he's winning them, right? Like, it's just nuts.
It's also the roles as well. This is what I was saying. So C60 is Ben, who's the guy where I started commentating. We watched a lot of the RMRs together, and especially when I was on Tech Pause. We just sit in Trav's stream and just watch a lot of the games, right? And that's what we were saying about kind of how he looked different. It was kind of, I think, confidence was the big thing. Like, he just did not care. Like, I think he, like, it seemed like he knew he was, like, one of the best players in the server, or, like, the best player in the server, no matter who he came against. And, like,
he was going for multi-frags. That's
exactly,
the thing,
and
right?
I love it.
Like, the Vitality sort of system, I feel like, restricted him quite a lot. And then seeing him in Falcons, playing like one of the star players, he got, I think it was the Copenhagen Flames game on Nuke. Actually, no, the one before that, actually, against Honoris, Taz's team. With the Polish boys.
The Polish team,
I think it was one overtime game, and I think he dropped like 38 kills.
What a player.
And then the game directly after, as I said, was on Nuke versus Copenhagen Flames. And I was sort of billing it up beforehand to be a very 50-50 game. Because, like, Bird from Sky can, you know, get his system and drill his players basically instantly, I would imagine, in that team. But that's basically a full brand new team, that Copenhagen Flames. It's a full group up of players, whereas Falcons is just adding a player that's just come out of Tier 1 and NBK, who has more experience than an experienced thing. So,
and a player that should be in Tier 1. I always hated him getting dropped. I think, like, I don't think that it doesn't matter what Mouse will do. Mouse could win a major, you know, in Brazil, and I will still say they should never have dropped NBK. Like, I think I'll always say that. I, like, no discredit to Dexter. That's just always going to be my opinion, because I always thought that NBK was still up to that level, and he was performing so well before. I think everyone has a lot of question marks around him getting dropped, but I'm so happy to see that he can kind of be himself again in the team. Like, rather than, he jumped into a few random mixes. I know he stood in every now and again for like random French teams.
Double Pony.
Yeah, Double Pony was one.
Time.
I think even when they were as Heat, I think he played a couple of games online for them when like I think Jocko couldn't play and he came in or something like that. But yeah, I think he's still proved that he is of the Tier 1 level comfortably. And of course, they've now made it to the RMR close bit, which is good to see. There's definitely some names that I think surprised a few people. I think Portuguese Family did really, really well. I saw them against OG in I think it was the final game. I was watching that. I think Jackie was streaming that, and I was kind of sitting like watching alongside with him. And they did well. They got some decent players in it. It's like, you know, like Rafa and like it's like Nope J, like Dead and those kind of people. Like decent people. Slight kind of underperformances for some other teams, but I think Portuguese Family, they could even make it one of the other qualifiers.
Well, you're a Portuguese super fan, aren't you? After the FTW performance at conference,
Where is it?
You guys love
my
it.
jersey. Where is it? It's right here.
Oh, he's gonna go and get it right now. Hell yeah!
I've got it right now.
That vlog that we had and that experience that we had, that one best of 3, or actually it was like 2 best of 3s, and we actually went to a bar, Neo and I, with a couple of other people that weren't working that gig. I think it was like FCW versus Order, and we're in the bar like watching the end of this game, and it was just
oh yeah
so funny.
Big up the FTW boys. I remember like the CEO saw the clip of us just freaking out in the green room, basically, which I think Alan and Mike, one of them, posted it, and I'm just in shock, like, and he DMs me and he's like, thank you for the support. And I was on the desk afterwards, basically, and he's like, thank you for the support. Like, there's like, I want to send you a jersey, and I was like, yeah, like 100%. Like, I'm not saying no. So yeah, it's actually a very nice jersey as well. I'll try and get it up to the camera properly, but got a little, like, it's like a Portuguese flag kind of thing going on, and it's got the name on the back. Yeah, big up, hashtag FTW.
Nice memento of one of your
my first
big
one.
gigs
Yeah,
as well.
I know.
It's
One of those things that I'll always remember, even if I end up like packing on the pounds I can no longer fit into it. It'll always go up on the wall in some way. But it was a lovely thing. But I think it's a little bit of an untapped market at times. I think there's a few decent performances. I think the Iberian region has a lot of names that, I mean, I'm very, very glad that Sun Pius is now getting the recognition that he deserves. Because I said from the he used to play for, I'm pretty sure it's called Iberian Family. Yeah. And I casted him in a 6 or 7 OT, solo casters by the way, in a 6 or 7 OT in like a Snow Sweet Snow group stage, and he dropped like 57 kills or something, like absolutely. It was on train. I remember this so specifically because I was losing my voice and I was just like losing the will to live because it was it like never ended basically. But it was Iberian Family versus like another Offset, I think, I'm pretty sure it was, and Sun Pius was just a god. And I remember like from that I was like, this guy is way better than anyone in Tier 2, and like he will get to Tier 1 at some point, I promise you. And I said it ages ago. I'm pretty sure I even tweeted it. I said, this is way back when, but I was saying like him and Elian, when they were still on Windstrike, I said he would go all the way.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see.
You remember these, don't you?
Yeah.
You always remember these performances in your mind. I mean, and as you so rightly say about, players coming up from tier 2 needing to have that tier 1.5 gap before they get to tier 1. That's why I think some Pius in Ents is so good, because he literally performed insane on stage in Cologne for Movistar Riders. So
exactly. I'm interested to see how Movistar do now, though, because obviously he was such a big part
in the RMR.
It was early, right? They were second seed and they just got knocked out.
Yeah, he was
just a huge hit.
I'm not even sure. Yeah, they don't, I know they don't make to like the best of 3 stage. They lost on the best of 1s.
They lost it. They didn't make it to round of 32 HLTV stage. So,
Jesus, yeah. I mean, it was a little bit. I think it's safe to say a disappointing showing from them. I think generally speaking, I think going in towards the next RMRs, there's like a few teams who you'd be very surprised don't make it through. I think Astrala's Fnatic, they should make it through. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't. I don't know who else. I think Eternal Fire weren't great when I watched
Eternal
them.
Fire, Movistar just has to be there. I mean, if they don't, that's kind of a bummer. Entropic not being there would suck.
And that's actually a good segue to Sprout, which is what we've been speaking about a lot on Twitter as well lately, because Sprout beat them 16-8, really comfortable, and which is that's a great win considering I think Entropic should be really good with Mir as well.
Agreed.
But this Sprout team, if Refresh can IGL at a level above this to a reasonable enough level, then this is a terrifying team with 3 incredibly young players, Zyphon, Stare, and Launex, who I think are going to be... Launex, I think, could be the next big thing in like 5 years, could be on FaZe.
I've got it on clip on the ESL conference thing. The day one, Mike asks me and Yumi, who do you think's like... I said I thought Sprout was going to roll at that conference because of like... just because of how good Launx and Stare are. They, like, for me, I genuinely think those 2 are the future. And I think Launx individually is sick. And I can even mention now I'm going to interview him in like a week or so. Just because if someone's amazing and I know they're going to go far, I want to interview them because I just want to see like how their brain works. But like for how young he is, I'm pretty sure he's only 18.
Yes.
And then Stare's also only 18. They're both like just turned adults basically. They're both just about able to buy a beer in the UK. And
Launch 17.
Oh, there we go. So not even an adult technically by law, not even an adult, and he's putting up like the most monstrous performance. I think as you mentioned, right, like when you've got Refresh at the helm, like who's got obviously such good tier 1 experience. Obviously the IGO role is slightly new for him, but I really trust the team. And I spoke to Devorborg and I did an interview with him not too long ago, and I was kind of saying to him like about the Copenhagen Flames boys, because at a time where they disbanded basically. There was no Flames side. Nicholas was being confirmed to Fnatic, and I think at the time that was basically the only thing that had been confirmed. But he said, in his opinion, Zyphon has the highest skill ceiling of all of them, like comfortably the highest. Yeah. And like I was speaking to him, I've spoken to him quite a lot recently, and he was saying like, if anyone is going to become one of the best in the world, Zyphon will be the first, just because he says the only thing he needs to work on is his confidence. And I think hopefully if he has, the amount of young talent he has, bear in mind as well, Launx is like the loudest dude ever. Like we saw, I know we saw Paladin in the conference interview. He was like, I feel sorry for whoever comes against me. We're going to destroy you. Which didn't happen because they actually got rolled. But
they came in last.
Yeah, they came last. Yeah. It was actually a terrible performance, generally speaking.
You got rolled on the desk too. Don't think I forgot.
Well, he cooked him. Don't you worry. But I mean, sometimes you need that. But I really, really hope that these guys like specifically try and bring Zyphon's confidence up a bit. Because if they do, and if Devorborg's like, I genuinely think he's a genius. Like I think like he built that Flames. He's rebuilt Flames 3 times now, and every single time he's got them to being like a top 30 side. Twice he's got them to top 8 in the major. Like the guy knows what he's doing. Granted, he's got a fucking hard task with EG. Don't envy him with that one. But I mean, the NA scene we can touch on in a future episode. Or I mean, too, we can touch it a little bit later. We'll do a bit of roster talk a bit later, so we can come back to that. But I think Devorborg's one of the smartest like dudes, kind of like for what he does. He's very good at like, just doing like the kind of the dirty work and grinding out stats and finding what player fits where. And if he's given Zyphon such high praise, if he thinks like this guy has the highest skill ceiling of that top 8 Copenhagen Flame side, which had Roy, who was. I think was stunning, like major he had, and just like a general run as well. I mean, he was put like a 1.25 rating for like months basically. And then Nikodos has obviously been for a long time seen as one of the best tier 2 AWPers. Yabi, who everyone thought was the biggest, like the best young gun, and I think will go very, very far as well. And Hooksy, I think a lot of people he really likes him as an IGL. So if he says Zyphon's so good that I believe him, I just really hope that now the Sprout side like bring it out of them. But so far so good. They finished first in the RMR, first qualifier, in the hardest qualifier as well.
They didn't have any problems with anybody.
No.
It didn't feel like they were ever pushed. I think the big thing that I have with Sprout is I hope that they can actually convert this from online to LAN, because they were at Valencia, they came in last, and at conference as well, they came in last, and that was just insane. I mean, props to FDW for winning that BO3, but still, it's still insane. Like that should never be happening.
Yeah.
But it's good to have Refresh on this team, I think.
Agreed.
He was, at least from what I've gathered from like interviews and such, Cadian said that he would secondary call in certain situations.
Yeah, like mid-round and stuff, right? Situational kind of calling, which I think is awesome.
And CT side, certain like micro calls and whatnot. So it looks like he's got a good mind for the game. Obviously, we've seen there's certain situations where you have a secondary caller become a primary caller, and they just can't do it because it's just too much.
Of course.
Cough, cough, Stewie 2K on EG.
But big up.
But I think the Refresh is part of a different system. I think Cadian's is much more looser, and he can figure it out no problem.
Yeah.
So if they navigate that and they make sure that Long is comfortable and Stair is comfortable on LAN, then this team is just going to just destroy everybody. It's going to be a very deadly team.
Agreed. Okay, so I'm going to put both of you on the spot. We didn't even prep this, but I just thought about doing it right now. I thought you, Trav. Who is the 5 making it through the second round of the EU quals, in your opinion?
Oh,
that's a tough one. I also gives Paladin a bit of time to think about it, but
yeah. Listen, Paladin can have his merry seconds with this one. I mean, I think that it's gonna. I think some of the good teams, like the good teams you'd expect to be through the first qualifier, I think they, it might get a bit squeaky bum time, and they might have to do it through the final qualifier. So I'm thinking Movistar won't make it through the second one.
I agree.
I'm thinking Entropic might not either. After what I saw from, hang on, let me just double check what the teams obviously who got close in the first one. I just want to double check that again.
Yeah,
because I would like to. So yeah, okay. So I think the fact that Copenhagen Flames made it through the early BO1s first time around is a good sign.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
Bird from Sky is the perfect person to help them through that stage. I think they're gonna get to the BO1, the HLTV stage of the BO1s again. But I'm not sure they're gonna make it through. I think Astralis and Fnatic are my favourites to make it through. I know it sounds obvious, but I really think they'll get through this time. Fnatic didn't look, terrible. There was a close 16-14 against Endpoint, which they won. And then the Falcons game was close as well in the end. I think, even though they've looked a little bit rough around the edges, I'm going to say Eternal Fire, again, should make it at some point.
Sure.
But, again, they have kind of gone back in time with their roster with Major and Paz.
Yeah.
So it's scary for them. So I'm going to, for the second qualifier, I'm going to pick 3 because 5 is a bit difficult, I think, to pick the full 5. I'm going to say Astralis, Fnatic, and I'm thinking to say perhaps maybe like an Endpoint or an Entropic, I would say.
Okay.
For the third team.
Go on, Paladin. What about you?
You guys are forgetting a team that got absolutely stunned here. Heat actually got eliminated very early on. Yeah. And I think that they are 100% the caliber of team to make it. I think Jax is perfect for the team.
I agree.
I think they'll make it through. I think the thing about the early stages of the BO1s is it's just so coin flip sometimes that like I don't even blame them if they get eliminated. I think they have plenty of opportunities. I think they'll right the ship, and they had a couple goes of it. I think Heat will make it through. Astralis should be good. Fnatic should be good. Again, so the reason why some of these teams just didn't make it, it's like they probably weren't going to qualify in the first place. Like you look at this part of the bracket, it was Endpoint, Fnatic, Copenhagen Flames, Falcons,
side, isn't it?
and OG, like all in like all vying for one spot.
Yeah.
And so like any of the teams in that little bracket that didn't make it, it was already like, okay, well you had a tough time to get through that bracket anyways. Like seeding will probably favor you in this next one. So I think Fnatic will make it. So what am I at? Like 4. So Astralis, Fnatic, Heat, and Astralis, Fnatic, Heat, and shit. I just forgot. Oh, okay. I guess Entropic too.
Yeah,
Entropic.
yeah.
I'd be surprised if they don't. Like they've been grinding for a while.
They're a good team as well.
They're comfortable
Yeah.
with that. And then let's just go with the dark horse. I'll say CPH Flames. I mean, if they, as you were saying, Trav, if they can get through the early BO1 stage like that, through the first open quali, I think they'll be fine. I think they can do it too.
I think for me, I'll go with the base. The two bases. I think Astralis and Fnatic should make the next one. I think, as you said, like that bracket was stacked, right? Especially with the Fnatic's one. I mean, they were playing against like Endpoint and Falcons and all these insane people. It's like okay, fair. They got a tough size. I think Astralis and Fnatic will make it. Entropic can be coin flip. I think they'll make it at some point. I'm not sure they'll make it in this next round. I think one team that I think is a bit of one that everyone seems to forget, but I think if they get going, they can be really good. Is that new Apex roster? I'm excited about that new Apex roster. I mean, with Shocks coming in now, I genuinely think if they gel, I think they can get going, and I think
they should make the HLTV stage next time.
Yeah,
they should.
I think they'll make it at some point, like just generally. I just we'll have to wait and see, but. I think, Entropic should make it. I really want to say, actually, I think Endpoint will make it. I actually really do like the roster. I think they got very unlucky to lose to Fnatic as well, because Fnatic started to crumble a little bit. And obviously, I've got a bit of UK bias. So I think the next one, Astralis, Fnatic, Endpoint, they're my 3 that I think will be okay. Flames will make it at some point. I'm not sure they'll make it straight away. Entropic, again, same scenario for them. And then who else? I think is decent. Actually, there's a couple. There's one person I just want to mention. Sorry to cut you off there. I don't know if you caught any of their games, but Monte Carlo. Do you know?
Yeah.
The
Monty mixed team.
I think in terms of individuals, they are cracked. It's like Red Star, Warrow, DemQQ, Boros, and Joel, and then they got Chris coaching.
Is nuts.
Yeah, I mean that team is like scale. Like I mean, if you think so, for simple, for his like 2021-22 prediction, he said Warrow is going to be like one of the ones to watch. And if the GOAT's saying that, you got to keep an eye on him. I think Red Star has for the longest time been one of the most slept on riflers ever. I don't really know why. When Skade and Fiend combined.
Fiend dropped Red Star and Harn.
Yeah, they dropped
both of those players
Harn,
doing so well.
Another guy who I said was one of the best AWPers in Tier 2.
Yeah.
I think it must be a personality thing, but I don't want to speculate too much because obviously it's quite harsh, but I think he was better than most, if not all, of the riflers on that Skade Fiend combined type team. So it's got to be some external thing, because I think Red Star is, in my opinion, probably the best Bulgarian rifler. I've said it for a long time. I think he's so good. DemQQ, a lot of people love him, hate him. People kind of lump him in with the cheaters. I think it's very, very harsh. I think he's alright. Boros, as you mentioned, is a god. I think spoke to Alan, and Alan said he's just insane. It's just whether he can because he's young, right? He's a kid. It's just kind of whether he can I think Alan said if he kind of like matures in a CS sense, Boros will go the full distance. He just needs to kind of like CS wise mature, because because he's young and he's so cracked in terms of aim. He's so high sense. He's like really aggro. You're like, oh, go on, like give me all the kills kind of thing. So I think if he matures a little bit, I think he'll be amazing. So I think Monty side's one to keep an eye out for. But yeah, some of those other big names like Copenhagen Flames, they should make it through.
Yeah. I have 2 dark horses that I want to put forward just very briefly to end off this segment.
Hit me.
Blue Jays, I think they can get close again.
Yeah,
also,
agreed.
Also, I think
Castaneto's
it's
a god.
also quite amusing that you mentioned how stacked the bracket is. In the end, we got Aurora versus Blue Jays for a spot at the RMR.
Yeah.
So this sort of stuff can happen.
True.
And second team is 9, which are the
I love
a
that team.
lot
I
of the
love
ex
that
Vizsla
team.
Krakow boys.
Yes,
A
the Polish
lot of the
guys.
ex Vizsla Krakow boys. Yeah, really good team. I think they could be scary.
Obviously, when we were at conference, the big question we were having is kind of where was Minio, because remind me, Paladin, who was the team who was meant to have Minio? Illuminar meant to have Minio.
Yeah.
And obviously he was like statistically their best player. So and he wasn't playing, and there was no information anywhere about where he was. Like he didn't even get dropped. It was just like he just wasn't there. So they played with a stand-in, and bless him, I forget the guy's name, but it was like
Black Tears.
Yeah, like one of his first lands, right? He was like quite a young, quite a young dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was always like, I want to go, where is Minio going to end up? Because in terms of the Polish scene, he is one of the most talented. So I I don't know where he's gonna go, but I'm actually excited. Like Sparrow's really talented, Minio's sick. I think Kai's been around for ages. Norrock coaching as well. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah, that old Aves core. I think they had a chance at the Flashpoint qualies, and that's when I first started watching these guys, and they looked really good. Like they had some really good pieces, and tactically they seemed pretty sound. And having those trio of folks together. I think they should stick around together, and having them on an org is super important because I think they were orgless for like a while. They were kind of just floating around, and so like having this opportunity is going to be a good one. Hopefully they actually do something. I think it's a good suggestion, Trav. It's a good one.
I've just sort of looked just last at some of the teams that made HLTV. One team that I don't know if they'll make it, but I just generally like their play style is EC Kiev. I just think they're pretty slept on. I think Soltovsky, the AWPer, is sick, and Yukla Zava, when he gets going, is unreal.
Yeah. The hardest team to pronounce in all of Tier 2 Counter-Strike.
Yukla Zava,
I won't be able to cast them. I'll watch them, but I'll never cast them.
I think I once had to get the team manager to send me like a voice recording of like, I think it's Uklut Zava, or like, I just call him UQ in the end, because it's just easier.
I call him Yukla Zava, but I wasn't sure if it was right. That was my guess.
Yeah, Uklut Zava, something like that.
Sure.
It's very difficult though. That's the hardest. And Burrier as well. Like people saying, Bur9, but it's apparently Burrier, I think.
Yeah,
so
I got told
very tough.
Yeah. Weird names,
very tough team.
I think I think a decent team. I think they're actually. I don't think a lot of people are giving them the attention in Tier 2 that they actually deserve, because they put some pretty decent performances up. We'll have to wait and see. Just a side note as well, I'm really happy to see One Pin. I know it's like very UK biased, but I do generally think they're I don't think the major qualification territory. I'm not deluded, but I just think individuals there are great. I mean, I've always shut the guy up, but I think Azuru, who's like UK rifler, is genuinely like, can be Tier 1 UK like player, like, and I'll stand by that. Like, having seen him in person, seen like what he's like, and seen like how he works, and he's like just turned 18 as well. And they like were destroying people as well. If that team continues going, they've been killing it in advance. I think they made advanced playoffs, and right in saying, and they were one game away from conference. They lost to one of the pretty decent teams, like one of the teams with the big names, but I mean, they're a good team. Basically, they're like a bit of a slept on UK side. You might see them go for I think every kind of RMR run, I'd be surprised if they don't make it.
Was it Forza they lost to, or did they beat Forza? I know they beat Forza during the regular season.
No, it was Forza they lost to. They beat Eyeballers before that, because I remember we were sitting in conference. It was like actually at the same time, and we was talking about Paladin when they were beating like JW and Flusher and stuff like that. Azuru, talented dude, very, very talented dude.
Good stuff.
Sick time. Right, we'll move on to our next thing. We can use lovely screen again. This is talking about an upcoming event, but not the RMRs. We're going over to the other tier. We're going over to Blast, and we're gonna have a conversation about who we think is basically our picks for the Blast groups. Right? This is talking. I bet Paladin, you're kick
that tier list that we already have here, we couldn't figure out like a specific one, and so we're thinking we're gonna have like a couple of categories here. One being
we can change
first in the group, first in the group, and then I think advances to fall finals. So just like the second or third and third group. And then I think when was it? I think it was like an upset one as well.
Oh yeah,
we can upset team.
We'll put them in
an upset team, and then ones that just don't make it, just get eliminated, or down to showdown.
There we go. And then I think like we can like split this advance like with like the B, C, D in terms of like teams that should make it further on. But you know, B, C, and that they'll still advance as well. It's just kind of like, you know, a lesser caliber.
Lesser.
So I think you know. I mean, actually, no. I was gonna say I think it's quite easy to. I think it's quite easy to start from the bottom. I think it's probably the easiest way to do it. I think we all know who's finishing absolute dead last. It's EG. Like, there's no conversation needed.
So I made my own little tier list as like a bit of practice for this segment before we went live, and I called the EG section and the complexity section. I'm sorry, I love Halzerk, but I called the EG and complexity section worried for their well-being. So honestly, I'm one of the people who's very, very positive, right? I don't mind them going for Nilan. It's left field, but I don't mind that choice. And bringing Hexed up from Carpe Diem, great choice. Yeah. But at this level, it's scary, man.
Paladin.
It's scary.
NA,
Go
bro.
Yeah,
Paladin.
look,
Give us your thoughts, man.
they said they were gonna bring in Rush for automatic.
Yes, they are.
Because,
Yeah. Until the 25th,
because
I think.
personal reasons.
Automatic comes back though.
And look, you can say what you want about the roster itself, but
Mm.
they were trying something and they can't even try that. That's the reason why I would put them in eliminated. Like
Yeah.
they can't even do anything with the moves that they've made. So I think
Oh,
they should
dear.
automatically.
And I think as well, losing automatic is like it's such a
He's
like.
the identity of the team,
Yeah,
right? Like
he's the
you
guy,
you
like,
build
right?
every roster around him, and if
And
he's
it's
not
like-
there, then what the hell are we doing?
Like not to shit on Rush at all, but like like that there's a different kettle of fish between automatic and Rush.
It's a shame.
So yeah, I mean, do you know what? Just as a real side note, I've had this conversation a couple of times, but you know kind of how Pro League's contract works, right? So if you bomb out of groups 3 seasons in a row, then you're up for review, right? And if I'm right in saying, so they've done two in a row.
Apparently, the last season was that third season, and they should have
Is
been
it?
reviewed, but like nothing happened.
Well,
I could be wrong.
I would be. I was under the impression that was their second, and they're coming into this next Pro League.
Oh, okay,
You know,
maybe.
if they bomb out here, then they're up for review. And I don't know about you, but I mean, personally, for me, like, they've got to go. If they lose again, if they don't get a single win for 3 seasons straight, and not being funny, like, there's a million better teams than EG. I mean, you can even get better
Let me
teams
check
in
what
NA,
their,
to be perfectly honest.
what their pro league group is.
Oh, they're all
okay.
on there, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually-
C9, Movistar, Liquid, Furia, Eternal Fire.
C9.
That's a tough. Maybe they can come in 5th, so
Yeah.
they're like above Eternal Fire.
Send me the link of that. I'll get it up on my end, right? Me running
Yeah,
through HLTV.
Get EG on the bottom rung first for us.
Yes,
that needs to be said and done.
No, they're there. There they are. EG.
Oh, there we go.
It's
They're
just
blending
blending in a
in.
little bit. Yeah.
They're so
blending
bad
in,
they've
yeah.
disappeared from the website.
But yeah, I mean, these are the groups. We'll get back to the tier list roughly, but I just wanted to mention that side note because I'm pretty sure if they bomb out of this group, don't get a single win, they are up for review. And I'd be so surprised. The only thing that would like save them, maybe their saving grace, is if the rule is they have to keep an NA team, because NA is so garbage right now that there's like no one else to even replace them, because even like the second and third best NA teams are part of EG now. So I mean, you can get party astronauts, bring them in, maybe Carpe Diem, but yeah, I don't know, I don't rate this EG team, and the only team I can see them picking up a win there, actually it might be a bit of a rogue one, but is Furia, because I just think they're a little bit inconsistent. But
I think they could beat Eternal Fire. There's like a world, like a
I
real
agree.
off chance. Like even then,
yeah,
the pipe dream.
Yeah.
But
we'll have to wait and see. But that was just a tangent I just wanted to mention, because I think it'd be the first time ever that's happened. It's never happened before. So that our team's 3 seasons in a row gone 0-3, and they're steaming on that road. They are comfortably trying to achieve that. They're trying their hardest to achieve that, it seems, right now. So
definitely.
right now, another one to get dropped in. I saw what you put, Trav. I'd probably agree with it, but any thoughts here? I was going to lean in favor of complexity.
I mean, look, I really like the Hazard group. I really like it.
I like it too, but
And
I don't know.
but it just, the problem is who they're going up against. This isn't a ESL challenger.
It's true.
Not,
It's true.
It's not a league, and it's not. There's no time for them to really play against these teams for too long.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
one day, and you could instantly be 4th seed, which is what I'm expecting to happen. Like, they'll just get bombed out of the gauntlet stage. They'll have one best of 3 play, and then it'll probably be against like a big or like a heroic or like an NIP, and I just don't see them winning any of those games.
I agree.
There's no like 50-50 that I think they can win. That like, I just have to face the facts, and I can't copy my way through it.
The
and
only
have
team
to
I see them beating is EG. That's it. And do you
Yeah,
know what? I'm
yeah.
actually going to be controversial compared to you two. I don't like the Hallzone move.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going to take a quote that I saw Smooya say, but I know it sounds very harsh. I don't mean it in a harsh way. Smooya did, so I'm going to just preface that. But he said,
it's always Smooth's fault.
exactly. Yeah, but he said yesterday. This is literally yesterday. I was watching his stream and he was like covering. Oh no, yesterday, 2 days ago. He was covering the RMRs, and I jumped in and he was saying he can name, like he did it on stream. I saw a clip of it. He literally named 15 AWPers who are better, like who are available to go in his opinion. And I wouldn't say all 15 are better. I think that was a little bit harsh. But I definitely think there is a few
Did he include
names.
himself?
He did include himself. But do you know what? I'd actually agree with him. To be perfectly honest, I mean,
No, yeah.
I think ability-wise, Smoothie is better. I just think, fucking hell, he needs to work on that personality. But I think ability-wise, he's I still think he's one of the best. I still think he's like a unbelievably talented AWPer. But the fact that he is not in a team, it makes me lean. It's got to be personality related, surely, because, like, I mean, it's what he's notorious for. I mean, a lot of people say he matured, but
the Swedes were fed up with him on Fnatic within like a few months.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Yeah.
I think he's seriously good. If he got his personality in check, I have a lot of faith in Smoothie, and this is not even like a biased thing of like I don't know the guy at all. I've never even had a single conversation with him. I just, from what I've seen of him, I think he's very talented, and I understand his like reasoning behind listing. I can't remember the people he listed, but I think there basically was better options, is what I'd say.
To me, the reason why I think the move works well is because from a business perspective, it's like super duper cost effective.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
He's a free agent.
Free agent from Dignitas, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, from Dignitas. And it is just an inherent upgrade. And I think for me, more so than like the move of it over Junior is like now you have taken care of quote unquote one problem, and that is the opping issue. And if that is the problem, and hey, you've gotten a decent fix.
It's one piece
you
at a time,
rise
right?
up to the ranks. You hit your skill ceiling, and you say, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and pick in another player, right?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, and you can clearly see that Halzok's putting in his numbers, that's when you look to JT and you're like, okay, well clearly the system doesn't work with the players that we have here, or maybe we kick TC and we say goodbye to the coach. You can look at more.
I don't think TC and JT would ever split. No.
Right. Yeah. So you probably do both of them. Yeah. You probably would have to do both of them.
Yeah.
And package, I think. Yeah.
So you'd look to like a system upheaval at that point, and I think this move allows them to look at it at a like segmented issue point of view, and that's why I like the move so much. Not necessarily like objectively just Halzok, which I think one for one it is an upgrade.
Yes, yeah.
But I think just beyond that, like the scope of like it from a business perspective makes sense to me.
Not being harsh though, I genuinely think you could have plucked someone out of Global and it would have been an upgrade. Because Jesus Christ, the performances Junior was putting up, like the poor kid was struggling. And I mean, remind me again. What team was he on originally? That NA Triumph. That's it, right?
Yeah.
When he was on Triumph, like the way he played was just like astounding. Like I was in awe of like the confidence, and I don't know what happened along the line, but he took a knock to the confidence basically.
I'm saying, man, Shake, Zilla, and Junior, they just need to stick together.
Yes,
exactly. No, I was on the NART podcast and I was telling Shake Zula to his face. I was like, "Look, you need to stay with Junior because I think that's where the best teams look.
Like pick him up in terms of mentally. Like he's so good."
And he's saying that they're running in issues with like the whole benching thing because Cole don't let go of players.
No, there's no way he's going for free. No.
So that's an issue because he can't even go to an NA team. And that's like such a big issue for him.
Because when he was benched on Furia allowed him to play for BNB, but but Cole aren't allowing this.
No,
so.
yeah.
I mean, that's what happened with JKS, right? And that's why Jason Lake's been getting the bag for like every player that he sells.
Jason Lake is actually the GOAT businessman. Like the guy doesn't lose money. I respect it, and he's the same with like his NFL teams and stuff like that. But I feel for Junior because I don't know how long he's got. I don't know if any of you know how long he's got on his contract, but he is going to be on that bench for
probably a bit.
Yeah, at least a year, I'd say. And at such a young age, you're getting to the point where you're inactive, like competitively, like official competitively speaking, for such a long time, and already your confidence has taken such a blow. And like he was such a confidence player anyway that you get worried. And you actually kind of hope there's like a bit of humanity. Like Jason Lake just allows him to like even if he's playing for like an NA team in like advance or something, and he's not like not going to do anything, but like or like
it should be BNB. They should
exactly.
When BNB gets revived again, obviously, because it's not at the moment, but. Yeah, I mean, they could make a really good team with that, and that would be probably a contender. But anyway, I think
let's get back to it. Yeah, go on.
I think we should probably. Who are we gonna go for next? OG? Have we chat about OG quickly?
OG, yeah.
OG. I think they'll qualify. I think they'll qualify for fall finals. But I'll go C. Yeah, maybe I'll go C.
I agree. I think that. What I'd say is I think like Degs is a bit of a coin flip at times, but. Mate, if he gets going, he's unreal. I saw him one of the RMR best ones, and he had like 39 kills or something in like regulation. Like he had a stupidly good game. Probably granted against like some no-namers, but he's a talented dude basically. So I agree with that. Upset. Who are we thinking upset?
Oh,
I think the safe one is big, right?
I
Big and
think
Liquid for me.
Yeah, okay.
Big and Liquid.
So well, we put both of them as the upset.
So I think majority will probably overrule me here.
I agree. Big.
I would like Liquid in the advanced, the low tier advanced, because I have to have a little bit of copium here, and I'm the only NA boy on this podcast, so I have to carry the banner somehow.
EU carrying you to victory, all
yes,
good.
exactly.
Okay.
Look, I love their Cologne performance, and there was
Sure.
a lot of stuff that I liked about it. I think one of the biggest things of why I like the Yekindar move is not necessarily because he's a top 5 player, but it's because he played in Outsiders. And I think the one thing that Nitro really wanted when he came back from Valorant was he was like, I don't want to stick to the same NA style that we were playing with the Grand Slam Liquid. I want to integrate a lot more EU tactics.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to do that. They all their slow defaults were dog shit. Like, it was so bad.
They were horrible to watch as well.
But
like, you could,
now that you
it was
bring
like watching
Yekindar,
a car crash in slow motion. Like, you could just see it was going to fail.
Yeah, no,
it was
exactly.
horrible.
Yeah, but this time I think it would just look much better. The defaults look much better. Obviously having Yekindar is a huge blessing just in the terms of how he opens up the map. And then I think there were a couple of situations where they looked a little like flat, where you would have like them all on the B side and Yekindar would be like flanking for some reason. He'd be lurking, and like that was just like stuff that they did iron out over time. But I think now that they have time, they had a little bit of a boot camp. You get to play in Copenhagen again. I think that is a possibility that they just advance through. Like the cope that I'm taking here is that they get third seed in their group.
Yeah.
And then they basically play a fourth seed team from another group. Sure. And then they win. They move on to the next stage. And they lose that best of 3, and then they go to the last chance one, and then they win the last chance one. And
I don't know if it's because like I like what you're saying and it's convincing me, but I will say that the consistency of having Yekindar again could mean they upset a team like Vitality, who have Spinks for the first time in some officials, and Heroic, who haven't looked great with Yabi. So I get that, but I still think they're just an upset team.
Yeah, I completely understand. At face value, yeah, it definitely makes sense. I just had to.
I just brought up the bracket as well. Like, if you look at kind of like their games, right? It's kickstarting things with G2. There's no way. Like, I'm sorry, like there's just no way they're beating G2. I know like people clown on G2 as like they definitely don't perform the way they should for the talent they've got, but
thing is, BO1's everywhere.
That's
I will
it.
say.
Yeah, I mean, it is upset central. If Complexity even get double-digit rounds against Na'Vi, I'd be super surprised. But then drop into the lower bracket, you know, for them, it's like they should beat Complexity, essentially. I think they should finish third in this group. So, I mean, that's where, like, I've got to give you the copium, essentially, because, like, you're right. Like, I can't see Complexity make it through. Liquid have to be the third team. And I think, personally, I think Na'Vi will top it, and then G2, and then Liquid.
I mean, they might play like an EG, because that'd be a 4th seed team.
Exactly.
Or they play, like that's a free BO3 win. Like, hey, come on.
On this side, this group A is actually a bit of a group of death, to be fair, in terms of the like.
Yeah,
there's no like standout amazing team in terms of like, you know, like for example, like, you know, like a Na'Vi is like or like FaZe in towards Group C is just a massive hitter, but I'd say they were very, very evenly matched over into. The only one I'd probably say the two slightly weaker ones. I mean, I don't know, Astralis, who God knows what we're going to see from them. Nip at times can be very weak. I think Vitality should top the group is probably what I'd say in that one. I don't know if you'd agree. Yeah.
I would say, okay, let's put it this way.
Go on.
I think Vitality with Spinks as a first event
makes me do it.
are still going to be better than Heroic with Yabi after a couple of events. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
It's just that raw firepower, right? Like it's too good not to work, at least partially. Like for some of these tournaments where you have a couple best of ones, and I remember at the spring groups they were like they just played Inferno 3 times, and I think it was like the first outing, and they won all 3 of them, and everyone was like, "This is the new #1 team. Like this is insane. Like they're gonna do so many amazing like." Even if that happens and they just play Inferno 3 times and they just qualify to as first seed, they have to win 1 BO3 to qualify. Like, there's just so many opportunities for them that I think they could just fluke their way through, even if longevity wise it's not the most pristine. Like communication is obviously going to be a huge issue on that team. How are they going to solve that? We don't know. They haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah,
let's see the tier list then.
Go on
let's
then.
See where we're at.
We've got OG there. I think okay. I think we could. We'll leave first or last. I think Astralis. Probably. Oh no. Okay. We'll put Liquid. Will make it through. Do you want to put them in C or D?
Put him at D. Put him at D.
Yeah, I
It's a
agree,
nice
I agree.
even round.
I think
Um,
Astralis are probably about a C, I'd say, just because
Yeah.
of like, I mean, I just got to go off the RMR. Like, it just didn't really. I was never ever the entire way for the RMR, never fully convinced with them. Like, I think at times Farley goes missing, and it is a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
I
would
think
agree with
I need more roster moves for Astralis to happen, and they've kind of
Spot
missed
on.
the boat on
Yeah,
it. That
Zip next,
as you're
mate.
saying,
Time to
Trav,
go.
earlier,
Yeah.
like that Cologne performance is such a overstatement to what the roster can actually do, and
Yeah.
it'll
It
probably
lulls
carry
them.
them on for
Yeah.
a little while. Yeah.
I'd
It
personally
lulls them
put
into a full sense of security.
Vitality Advance. I personally put them here.
Okay.
Just because
Yeah, I
Yeah, I'll put them in advance.
Yeah.
I'm super on the fence with Vitality in
Is it?
general.
I
I've
just
been
love
kinda on the
Spinks, man.
door.
Oh,
Yeah,
what a
I really
player.
like Spink though. Yeah, yeah.
He's so good. Like, I just think the only thing that worries me is if he doesn't get the roles, because I think he's one of those players who's very, very good, but he also needs the roles to sort of support him. But then he's also clashing with like, you can't be too aggressive, because you obviously see the likes of Apex going super aggressive. You can't be too he can't, like, lean into too many of Zywoo's roles either. So
Yeah.
it's like kind of like how are basically I'm just confused about how they're gonna play him, but I still think he's an amazing pickup.
I think the biggest thing that I think about when I think about this move is think about the CT sides of Vitality. Like those are always really good, right? But what always would happen, it would be Zywoo being the rotator, and then you'd have Apex and Masuda playing a site, and Dupree and Magist playing a site, and they'd both like communicate in their native tongues. Like that is not a thing that can happen anymore. Zywoo will not be a site mate, so he will be still that rotator. And now you're gonna have Spinks that has to talk in English with Apex or with Dupree or Magist. And I have no issues with Spinks, but I'm worried about what's it gonna do to Apex.
Yeah, it's
And that's
different,
the
right?
So like I think it's something that is like, okay, well, if you pop the heads before the other people, you win the game.
Yeah,
but like
click faster, win game. Yeah,
but can you regularly win tournaments? I don't necessarily know. So I just with the format and the tournament that we're talking about here, I'll say Vitality Advanced just because of that.
Yeah.
We haven't touched much on them, but Nip, what's the thoughts on Nip?
So, as I said before, I had a little fun with mine beforehand.
Yeah.
I put them in basically directly in the middle, and I called it "Remove Plopsky and they make it." I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's because I'm
Agree.
I don't know if it's because I'm like biased against an IP.
Yeah.
But that ESSA tag overperformance, was it really recently?
Yes, yeah.
I just that's not continuing.
No,
And Plopsky's been the lowest rated player. Actually, I'm not sure if that's a fact, but I know he's been the player that's been struggling.
We can have a look.
Struggling a lot.
See, let's have a look. Let's. We can take a look and see if.
Let's see if that fact is actually true or not.
Ross.
Look at yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So ESSA tag 0.96. That's the last. What was this? Oh, this is the entire team period though. But
Okay, so still recently. I mean, if you look at his like recent matches, I know it's because he's in tough roles. I know he's in tough roles, but for me, Plopsky has been it's been sort of overstaying his welcome on that team for a while now, and obviously lots of people are saying, listen, if this Fnatic thing doesn't work out, then getting Crims would be insane.
I agree.
Like various other options in Denmark as well. To bring in, but yeah, for me, just to go to actually talk about their likelihood to progress, I think they probably will actually make it.
Sure.
But I just don't think they're ever gonna win anything with this current team. Basically,
Yeah.
I have to completely agree with you, Trav. I mean, like Plopsky never felt like he had any identity on this team. Like even like since they brought him on, he was kind of just there. I mean, he kind of
filled a space, right?
roles.
Yeah.
And there are certain situations where like he'd be like T-side entry, but like not really, and then he would like kind of half-ass it, and it was like always very like touch and go with Plopsky, and it never. And I hated the conversations when we would have like people like, oh, should they kick ESSA or Plopsky? I'm like, it is a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's literally because as well,
ESSA is a Swiss Army knife in terms of how I think of it as a player. Like he can literally do anything for you. He's very selfless. He's literally playing in Swedish. Like he will get the job done. I think keeping ESSA and keeping him in Plopsky's roles or whatever his roles are, and then getting like an S tier opper. Honestly, even like bringing knockback, like even that could work. Like this team could still probably win something, but it's just firepower is extremely lacking on this team. And for what? Like Hampus and DJL have put in so much time in their T sides, and they look like like a cohesive team. Like they just need a little bit more, you know.
Brolin really helped, but they're still
Yeah.
hamstrung by Plopsky for me.
Yeah.
I've always thought that for the last like 3, maybe even 6 months, something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm just spot on. I mean, I don't think many people would disagree either. I just don't the identity thing. I think is the big point there, right? I think they were kind of like the way they'd use him as well was so weird. Like they'd use him as like an information player rather than an impactful player, and it's like, what's
I
the
remember
point?
Shox was like that for a while, and Liquid as well. Like Shox was very much the information sort of gatherer.
And they cut him in like 3 months, man. Like, come on, not 3 years.
It's one of those things though. It's like you know, you've got this player that like because he's kind of being so useless, you're basically just using him for information to allow the big guys to step up. Why don't you get someone good? Like, I mean, like it just like makes, and then there's like plenty of talent that they can even nurture into those roles and like really mold. Like if you look at it as well, like especially like specifically Sweden, some of the guys that come through that scene at like a young level, like we're looking at, you know, tier 2, tier 3.
You can literally pick up anybody from young ninjas.
Or I mean, I've always like really liked this guy when he AWP'd, but Chauzy, I think Chauzy's a cracked AWPer. He just got really unfortunate that when he was playing with Apex, they made him rifle, which was so stupid to me. They just fucked him over basically because he on Savage he was unreal as an AWPer.
Sorry, I was just gonna say the thing with that team was like really good for him, but also the problem with NIP or for NIP for those choices that you're sort of bringing up. They've also eyeballers, JW and Flusher, have nabbed some of the talent away in Shine, who made IEM fall. Svedjahead, who was literally ridiculous on Little Mix. I remember a game, I talk about our ESEA advanced routes.
Yes.
He once played a game against my friends where he dropped like 37 kills with an 80% headshot rate. And then they've got Sapek from Young Ninjas, who is one of the best from that team.
One of the best, yeah.
They've nabbed some of those away.
And I actually I spoke to Quicks, and he's the IGL and he owns Lil Mix, so he does both basically. And I did an interview him a while back, and this is after Svedjahead and Sapek had like so Svedjahead had left, and we were talking about the Swedish scene, and he said Svedjahead is genuinely unreal. Like he is so talented, and people don't realize it yet, but he will get noticed at some point. And he mentioned like we were talking about Young Ninjas and talking about this like the young Swedish scene, and he mentioned Sapek as well as being another one of those guys. And then, you know, fast forward 4 months I think it's been since that interview, and now they're both playing together. These are two guys that Quicks has been part of that Swedish. I mean, I think he's like late 20s, early 30s. I'm pretty sure. And he's been part of the Swedish scene as long as like Flusher and JW and those guys. Obviously, like he never reached the level, but he played in teams with like Flusher and JW back in like ESEA Open when they were all starting their careers together. So he's known all of the talent as long as them. I think I remember him saying like he has some beef with JW as well, which was quite funny. So like they've known each other for a long time, kind of thing, and he knows the scene like the back of his hand, probably as best as anyone. And if he's highlighting those two as being like kind of people who he thinks are good enough, and obviously eyeballers know exactly what they're doing. They've picked them up. They're going to mold them with the experience of Flusher and JW. I think there's a bright future there, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we'll carry on. I think, yeah, so I'd agree here. I think now it's like kind of the big words. Apart from, I don't know, I don't really have a lot of faith yet in Heroic, personally. Like, I'm not fully, I still think they're a great team. I'm just not fully convinced that they're like, you know, I don't know, you know, where they were.
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, I don't have a particular, like, this core has made playoffs regularly.
Yeah. I'd probably hover them here, maybe. Like.
Yeah, to me, it's like, look, the Cologne result was kind of yikes. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But objectively, I don't think I can go wrong with Stavn and Tessus. Like those players are always going to be up there for me.
Yeah.
That I have to put them up in, like, okay, pound for pound, they could go up against any of these teams and do decently, at least.
And they got lucky, right? Look at the group. They're making it through. Like, there's no questions about that. They got Evil Genius. They got a free win. So, like, it's like they're making it through. It's just a case of, I think for me, it's a case of whether they can beat Big in that opening game, basically. I think that's the true test. Like, if they beat Big, then I think they could actually be a pretty competitive team going forward, because the question marks are on Yabi. I love Yabi. Said for a long time he's very, very talented. But just like whether they've gelled yet. I know like one of you was saying, like, you know, it might take a couple of tournaments then to come together. Like, they'll make it through, basically. It's kind of how far they'll get is the question.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. I think this time, after they've had a long period of time to work it out with the Abbey, I think they're going to make it this time. But yeah, what I saw from them in their first few events with Yabi, I wasn't particularly inspired by. I think
Yeah.
just the fact now that you have Yabi and Stalin on the same team is just like ridiculous firepower. So I think they're going to step up this event. I think they're going to be slightly better.
Okay.
But I don't think, for example, as we'll get on to,
The big three, basically.
we've barely touched big, but we sort of left them earlier. I think big are the sort of, as you say, the upset team. They can always pull off a best of one victory against literally anyone in tier 1.
Yeah.
They're that sort of team.
I know Maui loves them. Like, he loves big. He
Maui's
thinks,
a big super fan.
He thinks they're God's great gift. At times, I agree. I think they've got their moments of brilliance.
Sometimes they look like just the best team in the world. Like
Genuinely.
that RMR best of 3 against FaZe. Holy
Yeah,
shit! They looked like insane, and I've never seen that big ever. It's since then. But
Maui,
oh my
he
god,
knows, right? It's just a question of whether they can do it in the best of one. I think it's very tough to question best of ones just because of how coin flippy they are. But we move on to the big three. I think now we can basically make the prediction of who do we think is coming first.
I made my little list, as I said, and I gave them some funny names. So
Okay.
I put Navi one rung below FaZe and G2,
Who's from here?
and
then?
I said we'll make it even if Simple doesn't play, because obviously there's been some rumors that Simple might not play this event.
Headtrick's playing.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. So
He's
I
there,
think,
right?
I
He's
think
boot
that's the
camping,
case.
So I feel like they wouldn't boot camp. I think that we're not going to see Simple just because if they've sent Headtrick, they've flown this dude out, they got him at boot camp, they got him a hotel room, they got him like doing all this. They're not doing it like, we're just gonna do it for Prague. They're not like, I know Navi got buckets of money. They're not wasting it on that. I really have a lot of doubts about Simple. Which then with you go from losing the GOAT, then do you start dropping like there basically?
Look, I think Navi's system is too good for them not to fall apart. Like just the transition for Electronic becoming the IGL and an absolute like no dip in form. In fact, the rise in form and Electronic reaching like former levels of glory, like while calling, like that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like it logically, like in history, there is nothing that I can really point to and say that is something that's happened before. It's an anomaly and it works. And obviously, Simple is the best player in the world, and you're swapping it out for a pretty big hit. I think Headtrick is good, but I don't think he's incredible. And still, you have Electronic, you still have Bit, and you still have SDY, who is doing his job. And then I think amazing. Perfecto is one of the better support players that we have in the scene right now.
Agreed.
And I think just those 4 players can kind of hobble Headtrick along and get them through. Like I think there's enough firepower on this team for them to qualify. I think I agree with Trav here.
All right then. So we're gonna keep them there.
The big debate for me, for I think for everyone, is that I'm obviously I can't pick G2 to win this first event with Hooksy and JKS. So obviously I'm gonna pick FaZe to win it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree.
Now we have to talk about G2, right?
So we'll put them there, obviously. Like I think that seems to make sense, right? We'll go into the Paladin, are you saying you think G2?
So I think FaZe will win. I think there's no doubt about that. Just because every team is handicapped to some extent. But I am not that sold on G2. Just because I don't.
It's on a lower.
Look, I think my issue with this is like JKS obviously improves their CT anchoring.
Sure.
But I don't know how the T side stuff is gonna work. And I think the biggest issue about G2 is their T sides. And again, Hooksies has a lot of work to do. He's got to make an entirely new system. He's got to make sure that Hunter is now in his new roles. You got to make Nico feel comfortable. And then you also have to make sure JKS feels comfortable. When he's not comfortable, this guy's not a good player.
Oh my God,
tell you that straight up.
Like, I mean, you couldn't
think about
say
him
any better,
in Renegades and FaZe, where he did his best work. That's where they gave him all the roles that he wanted, and even on FaZe where he wasn't playing the roles that he wanted, they were making him as comfortable as possible to make sure that he was feeling okay.
It was play around JKS, was a dumpster, basically. It was
but think about complexity, right? And that was an absolute dumpster fire because he was put in uncomfortable positions, and he never actually felt like he was a part of the team. And as soon as I believe who got dropped, somebody got dropped. I think it was Rush. And then after that, it kind of just fell apart.
Yeah, I mean that
but-
team was a dumpster fire from the get go, basically.
But
yeah,
to me, it's like I'm hoping that like if the T sides don't look good, we're back at square one. Like
No,
we're still
I
in that same
agree.
issue. So
I-
that's
I
why
love
I
this
put them at
team,
that.
though.
I put them in that heroic tier. Like I think that
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
put them in that echelon yet, and I need to be proven that
Yeah.
there is legs to it
True.
because on paper it makes all the sense. But so did the last lineup.
yeah.
So did
yeah.
Alexi B, right? And it didn't work, and so that's why
I liked
I'm
Alexi and it didn't
really
work
iffy.
out. But the only thing
Yeah.
for me is I think if Simple doesn't go, I think it then becomes this, because I casted Head Trick at We Play, and
Oh yeah, you did.
I wasn't convinced. I think he's good. He's definitely one of the best on that team. But
That was one of his first games he had to op, right? Like
Yes,
he was
yeah,
normally
yeah.
he was normally just hybrid, but
and
he
it was
like
playing
forcibly-
Vertigo when I did it. It was literally day one, in fact. And I wasn't like like if you'd asked me there and then after the game, it was like I think they played Fesser's team, Astral's Talent, right? They played Astral's Talent. Fesser
Yep.
was comfortably the best player on the server. Like, as in, like, that kid will go far. Like, I'll say it now. Fesser is so talented, and he had like all of these Na'Vi guys in his pocket. Like, I'm pretty sure, in fact, Astral's Talent lost but Fesser was like by far the best player on the server.
Yeah.
But he was the only one. Like, the rest of his team were just garbage that game. But yeah, I remember like watching Head Trick and being like, I wasn't like convinced. I remember there was like one particular bit where like he had like 3 back-to-back repeaks onto on Vertical on ramp, and he just whiffed, and it was like they were like easy shots as well, and I was like, oh, and I think I remember even saying on the thing like drop the AWP basically. Like, I was not convinced. So then if they've got a Head Trick playing AWP roles at tier 1 level, I really like I'm very concerned basically, because this is Astrala's Talent, a team that they beat because of how bad Astrala's Talent were aside from Fesser, and he was like whiffing these guys, and they were like in the open, not even in smokes, not even flashed, whatever.
What you will say though is that Head Trick is, you would assume, going to be made to feel a lot more comfortable when you have that team around him.
It's
So
very true. It's very.
It's
true.
going to be a buff. It's gonna, like,
Yeah.
you know how you get a home team, like home crowd buff. This is going to be
Yeah,
a
home crowd
home
buffs.
team buff.
Okay.
The main team buff, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So,
I just
I
have
don't
the
know.
feeling that for me, like, I would, if you're asking me, like, okay, you're plugging in a couple of players, would you rather plug in Head Trick, or would you rather plug in JKS or Hooksy? I'm like, okay, well, you know, JKS, who's had unbelievable standing performances, and Hooksy, who carried, who like led a team of like kind of random Danes essentially to a top 8 at a major. I'd probably lean in favor of G2 just because he's already had tier 1 experience on 2 back-to-back majors, and both times being like a grievance, right? And I suppose again, this is a lot of this comes from my conversation with Dwarborg. I made a lot of talk about Hooksy, and he was like, I've never. He knows all the Danes, like he knows all the Astralis dudes, he knows all of them, and he's like, I've never met someone who works as hard as Hooksy. Like, the guy knows how to counter anybody in any map, any position, any situation. He knows, because he just works harder than anybody. So like, I just feel like, I know he hasn't been given a lot of time, granted, don't get me wrong, but if you're asking me if I'd rather have Hooksy or Head Trick, I'm going to go Hooksy, basically, in terms of who's going to put up with everyone. That's my reasoning behind this side to this. But of course, if we as a group agree this way round, I'm happy for the democracy
that's
rules.
fine.
But
I like
that's my
this.
reasoning.
I like this. That
yeah,
makes
I like
sense,
this
though.
too.
Okay, we'll go with this.
Yeah, everything you're saying makes sense, and I like this choice. I will say, just to end off, is that the thing with JKS, I'm completely on board with Hooksy. I think he's gonna be better than Alexi B. Just for my money, I think he's gonna be better. When it comes to JKS, the thing with him is that, sure, the phase stand-in story, but that's really the only outlier. Sorry, that's really the only big event performance that you can really talk about, and he's living off name value from Renegades and Copenhagen Flames, Renegades and 100 Thieves.
Yeah. No, you're
So that's the issue with that one. I think he's going to be really good, but whether he can stay being good
and consistent,
and
yeah.
and whether he can be consistent and have that, as Paladin was talking about, the right roles to keep him good,
That's it.
is another matter. For
Consistent
sure.
and comfortable. They're the two words
Like
that
Valda.
decide.
Valda's living off name value right now as well. getting linked with every single tier 1 team.
Yeah. Generally though, I think you've both hit the nail on the head with JKS. It's is he consistent? Is he comfortable? They're the two things. Like, and he'll find consistency if he's comfortable, but is he going to be allowed to be comfortable? The two C words. And also, don't be a cunt. Then boom, and it'll be fine. It'll be great. I think it'll be dandy. That's our list. We're gonna go with. Okay, we follow Paladin. You've got a little bit of a bright spot in CS for us. I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah. Honestly, there is a lot of bright spots of CS right now because we're coming back. We've had a lot of roster moves, and we'll probably segue into roster moves and whatnot eventually. But I think one of the biggest issues in Counter-Strike is the unwillingness to branch out and ask different players who are at a lower tier to come play for a premier organization. Like for a long period of time, we were in this situation where a lot of people again play off of name value and a couple of good events here or there, and they survived that for so long because they played on these tier 1 organizations that you never actually get to take a chance on premier players
that's it.
that deserve those spots. And I think the biggest bright spot for me in this little time that we've had is Fasher moving to Fnatic, because
Gotta agree.
He is a player that's been grinding for so long on Ecstatic. He's been dragging them through so many different iterations of Ecstatic. Like, he was obviously a standout player when Wolfie was on the team, but after Wolfie left, their level considerably dropped as far as results were concerned. But their actual results in terms of rating for Fasher stayed the same. Like, it was still very, very high. Yeah. He still was very, very consistent. A guy, like, he's uploaded vlogs as well, so he's content machine. Like, he's been doing stuff about that. Like, he's such a bright spot for Fnatic, and even though like you might have an issue of like, you know, the calling and the strats and whatever you think about Fnatic, having Fasher have that jump up to play with the partner ESL Pro League team is such a big deal to me. And I think that hopefully I hope that the other teams take chances on this instead of just relegating to recycling talent.
I think we all mentioned this kind of individually on Twitter. We didn't even kind of sort of collab on this, but kind of what I said about this is anybody who's followed tier 2 the way that we all have and the way that we've all looked at, and any of other, you know, sort of our casters alongside us, anyone who follows the scene, we all know and we'll all say that Fasher was comfortably top 3 riflers in tier 2. I don't think there's a debate about it, because the mud that he would drag that Ecstatic team through at times, like when like he was the only one positive and they were still winning just because he was dropping like, you know, quadruple KDs. Like, I mean, he is seriously talented. I don't think anybody I don't think anybody was surprised to see the step up to tier 1, right? Just because of how good he was in Ecstatic. And when you look at some of the results they picked up as well, like they won was it Fun Spark they won when they beat like some pretty decent like 1 win I think it was.
They qualified for the Land Sweet Land, which I don't even know if it's ever going to happen. But
apparently it's happening in 2023. But it's been pushed back like 4 times now, so God knows.
Right, but he qualified, and he was a standout performance to qualify for that. I think they won. They won like one of those sweet cups here or there.
Yeah, he was the MVP of that tournament. Like rating wise by like an incredible amount. I think like. He ended up, the tournament that they qualified for, he ended on like a 1.3 something rating of the whole tournament. It was like something insane. I remember seeing some stat about it, and I was like, Jesus. And I think, Trav, you sent a little clip of of Fasher.
What I will say, before we watch the clip, what I will say is that
pause it.
It's quite amusing.
We'll pause, there we go.
You want it paused, yeah.
There we
go. We were talking about our like roots of casting and stuff, and actually, you know, Fasher, my friends who played in ESC Advanced, they were, you know, Dutch. You might have heard of some of them. I think it's Enisan, Blackie, Clash, Bernard,
FBL
and
dudes.
Bowen. Yeah, a lot of those guys. And that region, the Benelux region, is probably the smallest CS region, I would say. Like, you don't get many huge talents coming from that area, but Fasher was always there, playing for Dutch orgs like London Lions. He would always be a fantastic performer. And then back then people were saying, oh well, sure, he's like hard carrying, but where's he going to get? Where's he going to get from here? Because there's not many openings in EUCS. Not many people are going to give someone who's of his age a chance. Then Ecstatic came along. Then he hard carried. Now he's got his chance in Fnatic. It's one of the most deserved opportunities, I think, in the last year at least. especially from this sort of level of Counter-Strike, and to do it with the control scheme he uses is
oh yeah, it's actually batty.
It's even
it's
more
insane.
impressive.
Yeah, well, let this clip play out. Obviously, it's probably
From
on
the
screen.
RMR.
Go on, explain what you liked about it, Trav.
Well, this is
Versus
just
losing.
the boost on the sandbags.
go,
I think
man.
is the nicest thing, especially in
That's
front of that
actually funny
smoke.
if
Which
it
sort of lulls
Especially with the elevated
Falcons
angle
into
towards short,
peeking
gets
it,
one
and he can
and
get away. He can get away as well. And obviously this is a time where Fnatic are really desperately needing rounds because Falcons have 10 on T-side overpass. So this is really, really good. And then he re-aggresses here for what seemingly feels like no reason. He manages to he gets himself through, gets another kill, and then the big part of the clip comes in where he just duels this guy short pipe straight away, and one bullet, pop,
Jesus.
bye-bye.
Yep.
And he doesn't even reload fully because he's just a gamer, and he ends up getting the ace.
Yeah,
with the bomb on short. So
it's one of those things as well. I think it shows, especially because of how well Falcons played, like specifically in this RMR. And granted, the scoreline not looking fantastic. Of course, gets all 5 there, easy stuff. But I think it shows that, I mean, he can do it, right? There's no doubts about it. He's incredibly talented, and I was like very, very happy to see him get picked up by Fnatic, because like I speak to Mezzi every now and again, and he was kind of like saying how much he was looking forward to like what they had coming in the future. I already knew about Nikodos way back when. I can't remember. It's like someone told me like a month before it happened, or like no, I got told actually at when the major was on. Like he got approached because that's when he first got approached. And I got told so all of those Copenhagen Flames guys, they knew that was the last run basically. They knew that was the last dance for them. So I got told then that the 2 of them had been bought, and it was Nikodos. I don't know who the other one was, but I assumed it was Roy, and of course being Roy, I mean stats wise was the best player, so it makes sense. They all knew it was the last dance. I heard about it then, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, Fnatic's in a full rebuild. They're basically using Mezzi as the linchpin about who they're going to build around. Who do they pluck? Pick and pluck from free agents and tier 2 teams, or like low buyouts to kind of fill it out. And I think they've done a solid job. Like really, I think Roy and Nikolas are fantastic. I've said for a long time I think they're great. Nikolas especially, I've always been very impressed with him. But Fasha, I mean, anyone who follows tier 2, we all like just know how good he is. Like he's just a brilliant player. So I think very easy bright spot there for you, Paladin.
The roles thing is interesting, of course, with this team as well. Is that Fasha is actually. It's also a surprising pickup, as we mentioned, due to age, right? Because he's actually broadly the same age as sort of similar mid to late career like Roy is.
26,
And so it's not something you see really too often at a team of this caliber. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Fasha is trying to be a bit more of the lurker, and Roy used to have that role.
Yeah.
So they're sort of swapping that, and that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, because a lot of people obviously say Roy is known for being really a confident, aggressive rifler. So if Ash is the one lurking now, not Roy, sort of the other way around, it could be interesting to see how those two can mix in the future of this team.
Yeah, I guess that segues quite nicely into one of our next segments, which is talking about what we've seen over the player break, and more specifically rosters. It's been sort of, I think it started really slow. Everyone talks about player breaks and roster mania. It started really slow, but it got a bit hectic. There's been quite a few changes. We already mentioned some of them. We mentioned, of course, the Heat one with Jax coming through. Mentioned Shotgun to Apex. I think like those tier 2 specific ones, man, I say, are great. Fnatic we've already spoken about. The big one is EG. I mean, we've touched on it with like Neelan coming through. There's a lot of question marks around that. But I mean, the Paladin Kickstarter's thoughts of roster mania, what you've seen so far. Anything you would have preferred to see as well?
It feels pretty mid compared to some of the other roster manias that I've been a part of. Like, it never felt like there was like a blockbuster signing. I mean, I guess the Spinks one maybe, but like it's not like a Rops to phase thing. Like there wasn't a Rops to phase this time around. Maybe it's just that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Like a lot of these teams that do have the superstar names have kind of already locked them down. And there is no real
huge
way
contracts, big buyouts, you're not getting them, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So to me, it's like I kind of look more at the lower tier end of things, and I'm like, okay, well, what raises the floor for some of these teams to make sure that the door is wide open? And even then, it's like it's really tough to say like who I can just plug and play. Like Dexter's the obvious one, just because he's been a hot commodity for quite some time. And like I don't know if you guys have read the recent interview that came out, but like
about him getting approached, right? I was gonna mention.
But like all these players that about like taking their spot or whatever.
Just a side note, who do you think he was referring to? Because I was trying to have a conversation.
It was probably G2. It was probably like it might have been G2. I don't know.
Yeah, don't know. I was thinking like G2 was the one I thought of immediately, but then
maybe Liquid.
I saw I can't remember who tweeted actually. I would give them the creds for it, but they were saying judging by the way he's spoken about it and what he could think, it probably was kind of teams outside of the top 20. So just like wasn't like either didn't have the money to get him or it wasn't worth his time going kind of thing, which is probably the case, which is why of course OG ended up being a bit of a diamond in the rough for him.
I mean, it works for him pretty well because it looks like he has a lot of freedom on the team to do what he wants.
Yeah.
It looks like that guy, like just judging from like how I perceive him and how he responds to questions and stuff, he's a guy that really wants to take a lot of individual onus on himself rather than like, oh, I'm playing part of a team. He's kind of like, I want to be the star and carry these teams through certain events. And you can see like he has the capability to do so. There's like he totally can do it. And so I think that it's like the right you'd want him on a bigger team, but objectively it makes sense for him to be on this team for him specifically. That I think it works. And then I guess for moves that I would have wanted to happen, this sounds super weird, but the issues that G2 have is that they don't have like a dedicated entry player.
Okay.
And Yekindar was talked about for a little bit, but
for sure.
What if you brought on Apex from Vitality over to G2? Because now at this point, I saw somebody left this comment, so I'm not gonna say it's a completely original idea, but I was thinking about this a lot, and I think it could really practically work. Like having Apex work with Xtaz, they had an outstanding little bit of synergy. Now you have a hard entry player. And you return to some of the roots of the French organization that G2 was running, like the French lineup that they're running. So like I think there could be a lot of little synergy. It eases up Vitality as well. They can just have Magisk working in synergy with Sonic, and then you bring in like another player like to fill up the firepower issue. And hey, both of those teams get a net positive, but that's just a
you know what, actually I really, really respect and understand that logic. I just think that Apex, if you're bringing him in as an entry fragger, you'd be better doing that in 2016 or 2015 maybe.
No, that's definitely true. That's definitely true.
Because I love that thought process, but at the same time I think that we're a bit past that maybe now. But it's a really good point.
Something though.
Really truly does make sense.
You're definitely right. I think he's definitely, I say past his prime. That sounds really harsh, but I think he definitely is past his prime. I think back then was definitely but someone I can't remember who because I can't credit them again. But one of the goats on the desk, someone mentioned about how in the way he plays and the way he goes about his role, essentially that Apex is like the last true entry. Like he's like there's no like you very, very rarely, not in tier 1 anyway, get someone who is just so selflessly entering to allow for the likes of Zywoo to like use that information. Like you used to see it way back when before he made the dumb decisions to become an IGL of Stewie, right? I mean he was like such a good entry in terms of you'd find so much information. But yeah, I think he's kind of the last, like he still kind of is like the last true entry fragger in terms of so selfless, may I say, and it could maybe have worked. I get the logic behind it, but I think Trav, I think he's spot on. I think he's maybe a little bit past his prime. But that's when you look towards some of these, like I always think there's like real like warrant to look towards kind of tier 2 to find someone who has the potential, has the ceiling, like that's like such a high skill ceiling, and mold them into the role you want. Like I guess obviously that's what they were trying to do with Manesi. And G2 maybe could have warranted that, but I think generally speaking their chances look okay. I think in terms of maybe chances I would have liked to see, I wasn't fully convinced with I'm still not with Sunday Young. Like I'm not fully on that bandwagon. I know people seem to be like really kind of like get happy, but I'm still not 100% there with him. I think
who'd you pick instead? Who'd you pick instead? That's
the thing, right? So I was on this conversation like where else would you go? I really actually like Nickelback. I know it's a bit of a rogue one, but I think Nickelback's a fantastic player, and I think he role-wise could work really well. I think in Tropic, it pays me to say it because when they were X-Win Strike, and I was like just raving about them non-stop because they're just destroying everyone in tier 2, and they got picked up by they were like something family. I forget what they were called. And again, raving about them all the time. They were just before they got picked up by Entropic, they were called something family.
EPG family.
EPG,
EPG
family. Yeah,
after Windstrike.
Yes,
after Windstrike.
yeah. So it was Windstrike, then X Windstrike, then EPG family, then Entropic. And I remember I was raving about them because they were the big team in all the casts I was doing. I was basically only a tier 2 caster at the time, so I only did tier 2 teams. Yeah, I mean, I love that team. I was very, very confident they could make it in tier 1, and sadly they haven't lived up to my hopes. They've not been the team I would have hoped them to be in tier 1. But I mean, I don't know. But I think Nickelback individually is great. I think Elliot is a fantastic AWPer. And he could slot in anywhere. Yeah. But I think Nickelback could have been a player for me. Like, he was just one of those players that I thought, like, you know, let's say I'm shooting the shit. Who do I think could slot in instead of someone like Young, who has slightly unconvincing performance at the time? Nickelback's all right.
Fair play. I don't think it's a bad choice. What I will say to sort of end off and ask you a question on this segment is that I'm going to go from one Apex to another.
Go on.
I think this Apex team, the organization, if you looked at these 4 players like a couple of years ago, your four-man team is Shox, Sticko, Jacob, and Nor. Like, that is just utterly ridiculous. And just let's not leave JL out either, because he's been really, really good on Mad Lions and Mad Lions as well when they won Repub League. Honestly, I think this team has perfect place for Shox to go. Yeah, I think agreed. At this stage of his career, I think he can build up some confidence at this level of CS as well, and maybe become the more the player he wants to be again, rather than the struggles he had in Liquid.
Yes.
And I think this is a team that's just gonna. I think this team's gonna contend for tier 2 cups and be on the fringes of maybe even making Pro League one day if they perform well. Yeah. But let's see.
I've had high expectations about Apex as an org ever since they did that whole like the whole revamp, right? They did like abandoned the Scandinavian aspect of it, and then they brought in Stiko. Like signing Stiko straight up was like, okay, I've already gotten a good picture of like they want to go for something a little bit more structured. They brought in they kept the Cillian or whatnot, and they had that roster, and they never really reached up to the potential that I wanted them to. Like they had so much potential, and they just weren't able to do it. And bringing on Knock as well, that was the other player that I was thinking about. Yeah. But now you bring on Cuban. I think that's a super big pickup as well. Synergy with JL, who they both played on Mad Lions together. But Cuban understands that new pickup. I think this guy's been around the scene long enough to deal with a player like Shox and Stiko and Jacob. Like, I think that'll totally be fine. Like, there's so much synergy in this roster that could really, really work. It could be that, as you're saying, Trav, that re-energizing career move for Shox, where he finally figures out the role that he wants to play in an international squad and say, screw French CS. Like, I want to make my own identity beyond that.
I'm glad he did it. Yeah.
There's so much opportunity for this Apex team, and I hope at the very least, if they make the RMR, I think that's already a success, and they'll already have enough opportunities to at least get invites to like these CCT cups and trying to like qualify for this.
I said it earlier. For sure. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I'm very, very impressed with what Apex are trying to do as an organization. I think a lot of people start on the org just because like, okay, who cares? You know, they're picking up these like random dudes. You know, Relaxer, Freddy Frog. You know, the two twins basically, and it's like, you know, this isn't gonna work out, whatever. But I didn't like the squad itself when they had a Cillian, and I just don't personally rate a Cillian that highly. I think there's better options. Yeah. But the second they announced this, I was like, I'm all in. Like, I mean, I really, really believe that there's. Also, you mentioned, of course, like Shox is a big name, right? Everyone knows Shox. He's a talented individual when he gets going, but it's the players like when you have Stiko and Nork for me, like those are the two like really important factors. But you've got to make them comfortable, and when they're comfortable with confident players, like JL is a very, very like, you know, personally a confident player, and he shows in his Counter-Strike as well. He's very, very aggressive. He's very smart as well. We saw it when Mad Lions, I can't remember what it was, they won something recently.
They won Repub League.
That was it, Repub League.
Yeah.
They won
They beat Fnatic with the Heap stat trial.
That's it. And it's like, you know, they all of those players individually were fantastic. I think Mad Lions just I just think as a roster they didn't do well, but I was always really impressed with JL. I'm still on the same kind of wavelength that I really, really, really rate Chauzy. But as an AWPer, I don't rate him that much highly as a rifler. I think he's just an average rifler, but I think he can be a fantastic. And he's still young. I can't remember exactly how old he is. I'm gonna take a look now, but I'm pretty sure he's like 19. Oh, he's 17, right? So he's not even 18 years of age, right? So I really rate him as an AWPer. They just need to make him an AWPer and no longer. But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, what I will say about Cuban as well is that while he has had success in Mad Lions, we have to remember that really everyone knows the thing he's most known for is VP, and that obviously he's had quite literally two golden moments in his career, but in between, especially during the death of VP as well,
I think they're carrying him basically.
There's a lot of things that he's hit hot and cold. Let's put it that way. So okay, let's see if this roster can hit hot. And one thing I'll just finish off my thoughts on this little segment as well. The final one. I love the fact that Movistar Riders, after losing some Pius, have stuck with the Spanish scene.
Yes.
And continue speaking Spanish. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that quickly?
I mean, just to touch on that, I mean, I already mentioned it. I just think Pius is fantastic. I think it's a really good pickup. I don't need to go into too much detail, kind of there earlier, but I'm very, 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 very glad that he's got the recognition that he deserves, because the boy is cracked. Yes. He'll be fine in Tier 1. If any of you have concerns, don't. I'm confident in him. He's a great, great player, just as long as he plays the way he needs to. That's what I just had to add.
I've loved Blade's scouting. Like after dropping Smuya and was it Shocks? Was that the other
Shocks,
player?
The Estonian guy.
Yes, SJOKS or something like that.
Yes. After they dropped them, I was like, okay, I wasn't fully on board with it. But then obviously they've had the crazy run that they have with Dets and Sun Pius. And at this point, it's like they can kind of bring in whoever they want from the lower regions of Iberian Counter-Strike. And I have full faith in what Blade's been doing, because clearly he's done something right with scouting for both Sun Pius and Dets.
It keeps working.
Obviously, Dets isn't the most flashy players. He doesn't get the craziest stats, but he's had some pretty good impact games, all things considered. Like, you look at how they performed at Cologne. Like, some of the playoff games, he was the guy that was stepping up. Like, you're really not expecting that to happen, and that's kind of what he's there for. And so I have full faith. Like, they didn't make it through the RMR open qualities this time around, but I think it's inevitable. And I've heard a lot of, like, good things from, like, the community about Martineza. So, like, I think it'll work.
I've heard good things about him, but I have very little of a personal opinion. Like, I mean, that's the
I have not. The thing is, what I will say is that I haven't seen him play once, so I can't pass opinion yet. But what I will say is that, as I said, to sort of get us into this portion, the fact that they've stuck with a Spanish roster makes me very happy, because, as we said, those rosters they had with the Brazilian Steel, Smuya Shocks, that they struggled in like ESA advanced sort of level at that point. And bless Mopos and Alex. Mopos has only been on the team for 5 years now, and Alex 4 years. So they've stuck through all these rosters. Finally, they've got success. God bless. They won ESL Challenger Valencia. They won the studio event I casted. I'm now huge fans. I was before, but I was even more after that. And I think this is still, especially if they make the RMR and we get to see Martineza on LAN. I need to see that. I want to see it
young as well, right? There's time to work. The only time I've seen him played, 21 years old. The only time I've seen him play was once he played against a UK team called Fambit, and they lost, in fact, actually. But he individually actually had a pretty good game. I think he finished like second overall on his team, and it was like he got over a 1 rating, positive KD. I remember, like, you know, the Fambit guys, this is, you only really know them if you follow UK CS, but they're a great team. They're actually a very, very decent team. And there's a couple of those advanced teams from UK, like, really starting to make the step up and actually show that the scene is not as much of a joke as it used to be, kind of thing. It's actually got some very, very good talent. And Fambit have always been, they've been stuck together for a long, long time. And this is back when Volt was playing for them. Of course, now he's at Fnatic Rising. They're a great team, and Martinez individually really pushed them. So I had a lot of credit, and that was back with Velox, who are not much of an organization, to be perfectly honest, in the grand scheme of things. So that is it. And of course, with that, we can segue on to one of our last segments, which of course is Trav. You got a little clip for us.
Yes,
what it's probably best to do is just let the clip play out. I can just whack it open.
We can talk about it after.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll let the clip run out, and then we'll come back to it.
Soldiers, they're ready for this. They're looking to brawl as they send 2 players to the very front here, maybe to get flashed in. There it is. But they're not going to strike just yet. Here comes Taran. The story's okay. Hillfire 3. The 2-point wonder opens things up for SK Gaming.
He may not have had the best starts on SK, but in Brazil he will. 3 for Stewie, and Fallen closes the round.
Okay, Trav.
Yeah.
Why
So-
have you highlighted this
I've
clip?
highlighted this clip because when the Brazilian major was first announced during, I think it was 2020 or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And then obviously it was cancelled due to COVID. Everyone was very excited that Brazil was going to get a major, but then obviously it didn't happen for so long. I found obviously was looking back at old events that had happened on LAN in Brazil. Okay. There was that Pro League finals that Cloud9 won. That was, I think, Shroud of Nothing's only tier 1 victory for Cloud9. I think they beat SK in the final. And then there was this event, which was ESL 1 Belo Horizonte 2018. And I implore you to check out the video of the walk-ons that the SK players had. It's still, the full VOD is still available on the ESL's channel, I believe. It's it'll be ESL, sorry, it'll be SK Gaming versus Space Soldiers, ESL 1 Belo Horizonte, Cash Map 1.
There we
and
go.
Literally, first round, first pistol of the BO3, Henry G and Sadakis are having to literally ruin their voice box because the crowd sound is so ridiculous.
It's
and obviously,
so
seeing that clip got me thinking Rio is going to be probably even better than that.
I genuinely think, in terms of sort of hype and all of the good things that makes Counter-Strike the go, is I genuinely think this could be one of the best majors ever. The only thing that for me, I'm like personally a little bit upset is that of course like the in stadium's not in English, right? So it means that like when we watch the casters and the desks, they'll probably be in Sweden, to be perfectly honest. They'll probably just be doing it from there. But in the grand scheme of things, it makes complete sense because you go into Brazil and it's one of those countries where not everyone speaks English. I think the vast majority of the country don't speak English, so it doesn't make sense to have, you know, the standard tier 1 UK or English speaking talent even go out there. It makes sense for them to be. And just a side note as well, I can't find it now, but I implore you to go and find one of the South American casting things where a guy jumps out of heaven on overpass and he no-scopes through the box to deny the defuse, and the 2 Spanish-speaking casters are just losing their mind, like absolutely.
I think I know what you mean.
Freaking out.
That's
and
in my brain somewhere.
One of the, like, genuinely one of my favorite clips ever. It's just the most perfect like summary of how hype like South American and just like Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking casters can get, because those guys, they're the king of hype, like the kings of hype. So I'm really excited to even like watch streams and watch stuff of like actually in the arena when it's, you know, it's in Portuguese, because I think that's gonna be awesome. I think the support as well. I can't remember the statistic, but I think I saw like the tickets sold out in person like less than an hour. Like
it was like a couple minutes, I think.
It's just
something
ridiculous. That's like never happened in terms of like.
That's why the Brazilian scene obviously like had a lot of pressure. They're putting a lot of pressure on ESL, saying put it in the Maracanã and stuff like that. You know, because there was just so many people doing that. But yeah, I just wanted to pick out that clip. I do love my classic clips from old CS stuff back in the day, and I picked out that one because of course we've got the Brazilian major coming up, and I remember tweeting it a couple of years ago saying, you know, I'll tweet it again actually. So if you want to watch it over and over, you'll see it again. But yeah,
can you imagine? Can you imagine 0-0 Nation or Furia on like a radio stage?
My
like,
God.
That's the thing,
man.
Like, imagine if Imperial don't make it. That's going to be painful for a lot of the crowd.
Yeah.
They're gonna hate it.
Yeah, but yeah, that'll be a little segment that I'll have on a couple of these podcasts. I'll just find a clip that we can have a chat about, whether it's like something remarkable that happened many years ago, because I having watched and studied everything since about 2015, I do have a lot of clips in mind. So
I tried to have a quick Google of that clip. I can't find it, but for next episode I'll find it. We'll just start it off just to carry that kind of like, put the final bullet point, because that is just like the best casting. I mean, like, doesn't matter, there's so many legendary moments of like English speaking casting, but like this is not even a legendary moment. This was just like a random online game, but it was just brilliant. I remember it so vividly. So I'll find it. I tweeted about it like 2 years ago, so I'll find it.
Gotcha.
And we can bring it into next one. But I mean, realistically, that is the end of the show. That is us about done here. So we're kind of, what we can do, we're gonna try in a general sense, try and do this every 2 weeks. I think every week a little bit too much, because events will still be going, but every 2 weeks it seems like a sort of viable. It's not gonna be on the dot, record on the same day, release on the same day, but we're gonna try and do it roughly every 2 weeks. So I guess if we're going off that 2-week thing, Paladin, anything you're excited about for the next 2 weeks?
I mean, I don't have events planned in particular, but I think just having Pro CS back, you know, we don't have that many events in between now and the major.
That's it. Yeah,
It's like it's getting to be that season again where you really start to get hyped and the like tension starts to build, pressure starts to build for a lot of these teams, and I'm just excited to make some more content regarding that. Like doing stuff like this is always really fun. Like it's gonna be a fun next couple of months. That's what I'm really excited for.
Trav, what you got for me?
Yeah, so I have, I think as you did, Neo, as well, I'll be having, I think on the 22nd, I've got 1 day of doing the ERMR on the ESL stream rather than on my personal, which is going to be nice. I think I've got some Elisa Invitational casts planned, the fall, I think their fall invitational event.
Nice.
And I'll be doing some of the playoffs for CCT as well when the invited teams come on. So I've got quite a lot of stuff ready and ready to go.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. And yeah, it's obviously the summer break's a little bit slow.
Yeah,
without when you have no casting to do, which is why I've loved popping open the personal stream and doing the open call.
Say, what were your analytics like? Because I would come in and I mean you saw me come in and type a couple of times. I was like, yeesh, like 2K viewers or something. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, if I'll tell you what, if I was the only English speaking, if Smoothie wasn't on it, for example, I'll tell you what, I'd be. It'd be even better, but I was a lot of fun. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, while you can occasionally, maybe like once a half, look at chat when you're doing stuff for ESL or very other TOs. When you're on your personal stream, just saying what everyone has to say, whether it's stupid and ridiculous, so you can laugh at them, or you know, or actually a nice conversation. It's always fun. So really looking forward to getting back to casting again, and we'll see you guys next time, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Right?
I think that is more or less our start. I lost bits that I'm kind of excited about. I guess actually, you know what? I'm actually still really excited about the next 3. Like EU RMRs. I think NA, the kind of the big teams have made it through.
Pretty much. Yeah. Just EG hasn't made it through yet.
Yeah, like
they couldn't play the first one.
Yeah, and then it's like for me, it's like not to, again, like shit on those scenes, but like the 2 Asian ones, I'm not like fully convinced anymore. Just I mean, the only team that I really actually rate and continuously rate is Rare Atom. I think Tyloo are the most inconsistent beasts ever.
I love Rare Atom. I was seeing them in Valencia. They were just brilliant.
I think they're a seriously good team. I did the majority of Challenger League Asia loss for season 41 last season, and they just were comfortably the best team. Like no one was even like remotely close from what I saw during the groups. I don't actually know who ended up winning. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't Rare Atom who ended up winning season 41. If someone was there, have a look.
I believe it was them because they would have gotten the invite to conference and then they couldn't attend, right? So
yeah, I'd be very very surprised if it wasn't them. If someone wants to have a quick little Google, it was them, was it?
I mean, it's ESL Challenger League Season 41 Asia Pacific first. There'll be IHC 2-0 and then 3-1 in the final.
Right,
and actually, the funny thing about winning that game 3-1 in the final, they lost. Obviously, they get a map up. They get a 1-0 advantage by default from coming from the upper bracket. But they lost map 1 on Ancient to IHC 16-0. And then they won the next two, 16-13, 16-11 to win it.
And they first picked that map.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the funny part.
All right, that is interesting.
I agree, though. I love this team. I think they're one to watch for those young talents and some of the older heads as well.
Exactly. And then I'm really excited about the ERMR. I really think there's going to be a couple of upsets. A couple of teams like Aurora who make it through again, like ones that maybe people don't like really expect. Who granted will probably just get absolutely battered when it comes to the LAN, but doesn't matter. It's fun to see them there anyway. What else is there? I guess you got the cool kind of like semi sort of tier 2, tier 1.5s coming up. You got IM Melbourne and then Rotterdam, the two. Those two should be quite exciting to see kind of like who starts to make a name for themselves there. And then I guess it's kind of nice to see the tier 2 tournaments starting up. You mentioned Elise is a good one. The CC tour, when that actually gets to like having the good teams involved, that'll be good.
Oh, it's actually starting to pick up. So they just announced their playoff teams, and it's like 0-0 Nation, Pain, like 9Z, Corinthians. so they have like the bigger teams in South America are being invited. So to me, it makes me feel a little bit more excited that maybe these studio events, once those start picking up, like they've got a good understanding of who to invite. And I think that was what I was really worried about, that like
Were
these
Hummer
playoff
involved?
invited
Do you
teams would be
know?
good.
I know you covered a little bit. Do you know if Hummer were involved? 'Cause I remember we saw them at conference. I'd
Yeah.
never heard of them,
So
but
Hummer as an
they
roster.
changed names. Or
Well,
org or
Hummer
something,
as an
right?
org disbanded.
Yeah, they changed names.
But they went to another team called
Corinthians.
Corinthians,
Corinthians.
and they're
Oh, is that what
also
they're under?
yes,
Love
and
it.
they're also invited to this
Nice. Yeah,
tournament
good.
as well.
Well,
So
it's good to see
that makes me
start
feel
up.
a little bit happy that the tier 2 scene actually feels like it's on its
thriving.
way.
Yeah.
And we have CCT going, so probably CCT Studios, ESL Challenger will probably get a little bigger next year now that they've
We can hope.
probably had
Yeah.
time with no COVID or no COVID. But that is like a huge deal. Like
That's it.
this scene is going to get much bigger. We're gonna have a lot more time to do a lot more events. We're gonna
A lot
be
more casts.
a lot
There
more
you go,
casts.
Exactly. That's the
A
hope
lot more
anyway.
chances to a lot more chance to travel. I mean, like even like companies like Flowfire or Fire League doing this stuff in the Barca Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, we
Like-
can sort of mention that. That's a huge thing. I mean,
So
there's
exciting.
no information yet. Like, I mean, there's like a couple of invited teams. I was having a conversation with a couple of guys who like work for HSTV, and they were like really annoyed. They're like, you know, some of the teams getting invited. You know, some of the South American teams like, why would you invite them? And like not other teams, but like it's a South American TO. Like they of
Oh
course
no, you
gonna,
have to.
Yeah,
have
they're
them
obviously
there.
going to
Yeah.
invite South American teams.
And
But-
they had like a whole circuit for that qualification, so it is
Exactly.
objectively the best teams that have fought through that. So
Exactly.
I don't really find it a problem. And also
Yeah.
like, hey, you give them a chance to qualify for the stadium, you're gonna have one of the ones that go down in history for one of the greatest stadium events because
Yeah.
dude,
The only thing that I don't think they're
guys
actually using the stadium.
show.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm sure they'll still have a crowd. They've got to have a crowd.
I've heard. There's literally nothing confirmed yet. They haven't even like spoke to like tickets or anything yet. But from what from what I've heard, apparently because the thing is like midway through La Liga, like the season, right? So like they can't put like a stage on the grass and then just ruin the grass when they've got a game like 3 days later on a Saturday and they're playing against Rail, right? So like it's they can't ruin the grass. So they're not going to be able to put the stadium. I'm assuming anyway. They're not going to be able to put the stadium like on the grass and then like kind of completely ruin the pitch when Barca have got a game like 2 days later or whatnot. And like it'd be too much of a turnaround unless they do that, which would be so expensive for Barca to like then like rip up all the grass, relay it all, make sure it's perfect and not bobbly and like not break anyone's ankle. So from what I've heard, it's in like what they call you know the fancy glass boxes at the top of the stadiums where like you know the rich dudes go and buy them out. Yeah, that's what I've heard. But apparently it's in those. But I mean, even still, I think it's a really cool concept. I really like esports and traditional sports starting to mesh. I think it's very good to use the capacity and the popularity of popular sports with esports and combine them and combine big brands. I know Barca are trying to do a lot in terms of esports with like FIFA and stuff like that. So good to see. Basically, I think it'll be a cool event. I just really hope they pull it off because if they don't and they butcher it, then we're fucked. Like there's no chance of like any other esports, like any other like traditional sports team trying to combine with esports, unless it's like FIFA related. So there's a lot riding on Flowfire not fucking that up basically, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that more or less concludes things. So lads, of course, thank you for joining me. It's been a good. I was like 2.5 hours on it. It flew by. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for of course watching. The rough idea is to try and do this every 2 weeks. Of course, this is very, very up in the air with how busy our schedules are, how busy everything is. So we will keep you updated. And of course, to keep you updated, follow us on Twitter. They're right below. You can see our names. Of course, check out when Trav does some streams for the RMR coming up. This is going out literally tomorrow, as of the day recording. It's going out on the 19th. So. But at this point, you know, go and follow Trav on Twitch. You'll see a lot of the streams. Or if you want to swing by, I'll be doing a lot of the ESL stuff for the next week and a half. I'll be doing literally every region apart from NA and South America. So if you click on one of them during like normal working hours for EU, you'll probably see me. And of course, Paladins releasing content like an absolute madman recently. Absolutely on the graft right now. So go and check out Paladin on YouTube as well. They'll all be linked below either way. But ladies and gentlemen, cheers for joining us. First pilot episode of 2.5 Talent. Hopefully, they start off something beautiful. We'll have to wait and see. Lads, thank you for joining me. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll leave it here. We'll stop rambling. We'll see you all very, very soon. Go and check on Twitter. That's when you see when the next one's released. See you soon.